Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles. Chapter 27:15. In the abyss, what was worshipped by hundreds of divine fires wasn't an ordinary divine fire. Its nature was similar to the 9 nether demonic ancestral fire, so it should be a type of ancestral fire. Mo Xiaolang had a deep understanding of fire. At first sight of the pale white flame, he concluded that it was a type of ancestral fire. Although ancestral fire wasn't the same concept as ancestral dragons, since it was named with the word ancestral, it must be a divine object born after the creation of heaven and earth. It had a terrifying divine might that could incinerate heaven and earth. Even after countless eras of inheritance, it could still reproduce its former invincible divine might. Today, the so-called ancestral fire was actually a type of flame seed. It was naturally very different from when ancestral fire was just born in ancient times. After experiencing the passage of time, people didn't know what kind of changes had happened to ancestral fire. But judging from the 9 nether demonic ancestral fire and the pale white flame they saw today, they were both inherited between heaven and earth in the form of fire seeds. If it was ancestral fire in its true peak state, Dragon's sacrificial continent definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. But they completely had the ability to become ancestral fires in their peak state, just like how Long Chen had the great possibility of becoming an ancestral dragon. Even the seed of the 9 nether demonic ancestral fire had grown along with Mo Xiaolang countless times and had always coexisted with Mo Xiaolang until now. Mo Xiaolang's growth was also the growth of the 9 nether demonic ancestral fire. The black fire seed that could only be regarded as a very ordinary fire seed in the lower realm had now surpassed most divine fires and could almost suppress all divine fires. In the future, as Mo Xiaolang grew, the 9 nether demonic ancestral fire still had a lot of room for growth. He himself believed that one day, the 9 nether demonic ancestral fire could also grow from a fire seed to its peak state because of him. Ancestral bloodline was the peak bloodline. Ancestral fire and ancestral dragon belonged to Dragon's sacrificial continent and were unique to it. At the beginning of heaven and earth, many divine objects were born. For example, the pure immortal source force that Lingxi obtained was one of them. Pure immortal source energy created the pure immortal source body and divine emperor Ling Su. However, when it was just born, the pure immortal source energy was inferior to the ancestral fire. It was just that today, the ancestral fire was just like the dragon's sacrificial continent. When the dragon's sacrificial continent nearly collapsed, the ancestral fire that was born was only left with the tinder. Seeing this pale white flame, Mo Xiaolang almost suffocated. Even the hundreds of divine fires did not excite him as much as this ancestral fire. Although it was only a seed, it could make those flames submit and kneel. Big brother, although only a few of the 10 ancestral fires have been passed down and there are even legends about them among the people, I think I know what this pale flame is. Long Chen carefully gazed at the pale white flame. It was an extremely scorching flame, the exact opposite of the 9 nether demonic ancestral fire's coldness. One was scorching to the extreme, while the other was cold to the extreme. However, this pale white fire seed starting point was much higher than the 9 nether demonic ancestral fire. Back then, the 9 nether demonic ancestral fire's fire seed was scattered all over the world and was very weak. After many years of cultivation by Mo Xiaolang, he was finally able to suppress the divine fire today. And this pale white flame was even stronger than the current 9 nether demonic ancestral fire. Although it was strange that an ancestral fire would appear in Destiny Heavenly Palace, Long Chen was still sincerely happy for Mo Xiaolang. In this way, there were still hundreds of divine fires. If Mo Xiaolang could devour them all, he would definitely reach a terrifying realm. His talent was different from Long Chen's, but it was also heaven-defying because he only needed to devour. Just like how Primeval Troll called him the demon of devouring. However, the entire dragon sacrificial dragon continent had already been searched. Apart from the gods, there were no more divine fires. For so many divine fires to appear in this place, and there was even an ancestral fire seed, it was truly a miracle and extremely lucky. It was as if this was the arrangement of fate. Long Chen had a deeper understanding of the word fate. Mo Xiaolang couldn't suppress the excitement in his heart. He said, "It is the hottest and most brutal among the ancestral fires. Just like the immemorial blood spirit dragon among the 10 great ancestral dragons, it is in charge of slaughter. Wherever this flame goes, everything will turn into ashes. Nothing is spared. Its name is Firmament Emperor Ancestral Fire. Firmament Emperor Ancestral Fire. Extreme White Flame. 9 Nether Demonic Ancestral Fire. Extreme Cold Black Flame." In God's nation, the dragon warriors of the 5 dragon cities were also amazed by the hundreds of divine fires in the abyss, especially when they saw the hundreds of divine fires kneeling and submitting to the Firmament Emperor Ancestral Fire. The pale white flame had a domineering and strong will, which was the exact opposite of the mysterious and indifferent netherworld demonic ancestral fire. Suddenly, Destiny Dragon City's Dragon Emperor Tianyun said, "I've heard of a legend. According to the legend, every ancestral dragon actually has a kind of fire, and that is the ancestral fire. The ancestral fire has its own consciousness and follows the ancestral dragon. However, this legend doesn't have much basis, so not many people believe it. After all, we know too little about the ancestral dragons. However, the inheritance fire seed of the Firmament Emperor Ancestral Fire is actually left in Destiny Heavenly Palace. It seems that this legend can be verified. Because according to the legend, the most gentle chaotic origin Fate Dragon has the violent Firmament Emperor Ancestral Fire as its companion." Hearing this legend, everyone was enlightened. Long Chen understood that it was absolutely true. He didn't think that he and Mo Xiaolang had such a connection. Yes, according to the legend, the chaotic origin Fate Dragon is pure white, and the Firmament Emperor Ancestral Fire is also white. Obviously, they belong to the same bloodline. Soi Eon had become stronger recently, so she was nervous and uncertain. She also wanted Long Chen and Mo Xiaolang to surpass her as soon as possible. After all, she wasn't good at taking care of things on her own. She could hide in the back and take advantage of others. So, if the inheritance fire seed of the Firmament Emperor Ancestral Fire is here, then the chaotic origin Fate Dragon should be here too. Long Chen looked ahead. There was a path leading to the depths of Destiny Heavenly Palace. The Ancestral Dragon and the Ancestral Fire had such a connection, he didn't expect it. There must be something in front of him, the inheritance blood essence of the chaotic origin Fate Dragon. Inheritance fire seed, this was the concept proposed by the Tianyun Dragon Emperor. Thinking about it carefully, it turned out to be very correct. When Long Chen and Mo Xiaolang obtained the 9 Nether Demon Ancestral Fire, they were still very weak. At that time, they thought that the 9 Nether Demon Ancestral Fire was very terrifying. They thought that it was the 9 Nether Demon Ancestral Fire, but in fact, it wasn't even a fire seed, it was just a fragment. Until today, Mo Xiaolang grew step by step, and it gradually became a kind of fire seed. This was just like the strengthening of Long Chen's ancestral dragon inheritance. While he obtained the inheritance blood essence of the chaotic origin Fate Dragon, he actually found the ancestral fire for Mo Xiaolang. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He just didn't know what the ancestral dragon of the 9 Nether Demon Ancestral Fire was. What was the ancestral fire of the ancient blood spiritual dragon? According to the rules, at least their colors were the same. In other words, could the void cosmic dragon's flame be illusory? Long Chen couldn't help but be curious. He and Mo Xiaolang must have obtained a great opportunity this time. The two of them looked at each other. Mo Xiaolang said, "Big brother, you go ahead. I can handle things here. Don't worry. I'll devour these divine fires one by one first. Then, I'll go and retrieve the Imperial Ancestral Fire. With my talent, it won't be a problem." The Divine Emperor didn't know when he would arrive, and Long Chen couldn't keep him company and watch him devour the divine fires. Therefore, they could only separate for now. "I'll stay." Soi Eon looked at him eagerly. Of course, she wanted to stay here. Long Chen nodded and left the two of them behind. He also said a few words and went ahead. He believed that Mo Xiaolang had a sense of propriety and wouldn't rush things. devouring the divine fires, even if his talent was heaven-defying. In fact, he still had to do it gradually. After leaving Mo Xiaolang and Sui Yan behind, he set off again. There weren't that many fires of destiny in front of him anymore. His footsteps were very distant. Just like that, Long Chen walked in the empty corridor for another day. In the meantime, Mo Xiaolang sent news that he'd already devoured 5 types of divine fires and was getting stronger. Lingxi, on the other hand, was still learning the heavenly rule. Their group, their brothers and sisters, were getting stronger and stronger. As the elder brother, Long Chen couldn't be left behind. Finally, he saw a door. This was the end of Destiny Sky Palace. On the door, there was a picture made of light. Strangely, this white picture was of a young dragon. Pure white, very cute. The dragon whelp was slightly plump and had a round body. It had crystal clear claws, big mischievous eyes, exquisite dragon horns, and pure white dragon scales. It also had a pair of white wings on its left and right. On its left was the word fate, and on its right was the word wish. Destiny Dragon City didn't have the image of a mixed origin Destiny Dragon. Therefore, they only knew that the mixed origin Destiny Dragon was white. However, this cute and harmless young dragon in front of him was actually the chaotic origin Fate Dragon. Ranked 4th of the 10 great ancestor dragons, controlling fate and wishes, extremely mysterious, able to change the heavens and earth, second only to the Void Universe Dragon. Regardless, Long Chen didn't believe it. Of course, this was just a picture. What he was looking for should be inside this door. Long Chen held his breath, pressed his palm on the door, and gently pushed it open. At this moment, he suddenly had a feeling. This feeling was similar to the feeling he had when he took the ancient blood spirit dragon's inheritance essence and blood from the cave in Biyao town's barren mountain. Both were filled with awe, but the difference was that at that time, he was more afraid, but at this moment, he felt more comfortable. This was the feeling that the ancestor dragon of destiny gave him. That's right, it was here. Long Qinglan had shown him the way and led him here. This wasn't a coincidence, it was his arrangement. Until now, all 5 types of ancestor dragon's inheritance blood were related to his guidance. Father, I won't let you down. Suddenly, he felt his father's good intentions. When he finally pushed it open, there was nothing inside. Today's winner was a WeChat reader with the nickname Running Xiaolang. Destiny was in the eyes. Long Chen was baffled. These words appeared in his mind. Destiny was in the eyes. That's right. The inheritance blood essence split into 2 and entered his eyes gently. Long Chen couldn't describe what kind of change it was. His eyes lost their senses in the blink of an eye, as though they weren't his. When he regained control, many blurry images flickered in his eyes. It was an ancient world. The dragon sacrificial dragon continent was countless times larger than it was today. There were billions of divine dragons that were incomparably huge, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. What a glorious scene. What kind of situation was this? The number 1 of the myriad worlds, the ruler of the myriad worlds. Every divine dragon was blurry, but they were all very powerful. In Long Chen's eyes, these mystical dragons gradually became blooming flames of destiny. On the outside, Long Chen still had black eyes, but they were different. When the inheritance blood essence of the chaotic Yuan Fate Dragon completely merged into his eyes, the world he saw was more of the entanglement of fate, the discovery of the future, the voices of all living beings, and the wishes of all living beings. His left eye represented fate, and it was called the Destiny Heavenly Eye. His right eye represented desire, and it was called the Heart Eye of Desire. Long Chen saw a different world, and in addition to the comprehension of the flames of fate, all of this helped form the 6th seal on his primordial void dragon primordial spirit. A pure white seal of fate. After becoming a god, he directly comprehended the nomological laws. The seal of fate was guiding him, allowing him to fully open the Destiny Heavenly Eye in his left eye. When the Destiny Heavenly Eye opened, Long Chen's left eye was filled with the nomological power of fate. Everything happened naturally. It was as if he had just obtained the inheritance blood essence of the divine Tao heart-refining dragon and knew how to use the divine sword and saber prison. Now, the nomological laws of the Destiny Heavenly Eye were also very clear. The nomological power of fate is like the suppression of the labyrinth of fate. Once I open the Destiny Heavenly Eye, I will be trapped in an environment like the labyrinth of fate as long as I see it. Even gods and demons will be suppressed by the nomological laws of fate and return to being mortals. Their battle prowess will be greatly reduced. It seemed simple, but when it really happened, it was extremely terrifying. The nomological laws of the Destiny Heavenly Eye were a kind of weakening, a kind of suppression of fate. It directly changed the direction of the opponent's development, turning their fate from a god to a mortal. Such a forceful, strange, and heaven-defying nomological law was even more terrifying than the nomological laws of emotion and space. I'm afraid that from today on, the effect of the Destiny Heavenly Eye on me will surpass that of time rupture. This was undoubtedly a nightmare for many people. Long Chen had inherited the essence blood of the chaotic origin heavenly fate dragon, and this was only the first nomological law he had comprehended. For example, the massacre nomological law. Long Chen had already comprehended it to an extremely deep level, and he was able to unleash many of the ancient blood spiritual dragon's powers. 5 nomological laws. For gods, this was the most common type. After all, even Divine Emperor Di Jun only knew the Tao of space and the blazing sun. Most importantly, it was profound. This inheritance actually took a very long time, and it was very slow. When Long Chen had completely inherited it, he didn't know how much time had passed. His biggest gain this time was the formation of the Destiny Seal. It hid countless secrets of the ancestral dragon. His eyes had already become the eyes of the chaotic origin heavenly fate dragon. Furthermore, the nomological laws of the Destiny Heavenly Eye were also a huge source of support for him in the future. If I can persist here until I reach the ultimate realm of the Tai Chi divine realm and advance to the next level, then fighting or even killing the godly kings of hell shouldn't be a problem. Even now, he was confident that he wouldn't be defeated. From the Great Circle realm to the ultimate realm was to be more confident that he could defeat the godly kings of hell in one go. The godly kings were terrifying, but Long Chen didn't forget the helplessness he felt when he first encountered the godly kings of hell. He didn't forget how he attacked Lingxi. But now, it was about time. If I can't wait for Di Jun to return, then I won't be able to make a move. But I can't go out rashly at this moment. He still needed to wait. Taking advantage of this time, he communicated with Mo Xiaolang. Now, Mo Xiaolang was focused on devouring the divine fires, and he wasn't in a hurry. Soi Yan said, Big Brother Xiaolang has already devoured 100 of the divine fires, and has gathered nearly 200 divine fires in his body. He has already cultivated the 99 Burning Heaven's secret technique to the extreme. He has even expanded it. And he's about to reach the limit, the Great Circle realm of the Great Essence Divine Realm. In terms of realm, Mo Xiaolang was indeed much higher than him. Of course, Soi Yan was the highest. As a Great Circle realm Divine Lord, he would be even stronger. Maybe in the battle of the God Kings, he would be of great help. Everyone was growing. This feeling filled Long Chen's heart with passion. Let him move forward in peace. I have to continue. Yanner, if anything happens to him, tell me in time. Long Chen said and began to cultivate in that vast white space. He needed more time to understand what fate was, and he also needed to deepen his understanding of slaughter, time, life, and karma. More importantly, he needed to grow in realm. He had the willpower of trillions of living beings, so he didn't have to worry about the source of power. Although he couldn't devour power as fast as Mo Xiaolang and the others, his power was purer, heavier, and more powerful. Even if he cultivated step by step, he had reached a speed close to others' devouring speed. This was already the greatest manifestation of peerless talent. Especially after obtaining the 5th inheritance blood essence. He suddenly remembered the first skill he obtained when he first obtained the ancient blood spirit dragon's inheritance blood essence. Refining blood into chi. That's right, that was one of the ancient blood spirit dragon's heaven-defying means. But as his cultivation grew, refining blood into chi gradually lost its effect on high-level enemies. At that time, refining blood into chi gave great help to Long Chen. Later, the blood sacrifice and so on were all the same. But these were not the rules. Unable to use refining blood into chi, he could only cultivate step by step. But the God Emperor was about to return, and it was really difficult to cultivate quietly. Maybe in the future, he would be able to catch up to him even if he fled to the ends of the earth. Work hard. Perseverance was victory. Long Chen had never forgotten how he had managed to reach his current cultivation level. But now, he had become even more patient, and even more resolute. He had shed the childishness of his youth, and no longer showed off his power with words. But he was even more terrifying, because he shouldered the responsibility. Compared to the gods, he had more courage to fight. Now, he just waited for the decisive battle. Chapter 27:17. When he inherited the primordial chaos fate dragon's inheritance blood essence and sat down to cultivate, he vaguely heard this voice in a trance. It was illusory and came from before the epoch. If you want to know your father's true identity, after you have the strength to defeat the God King, go to the Origin Dragon Palace. He will be waiting for you there. Long Chen had just closed his eyes when he opened them. When he heard this, there were no words to describe the shock he felt. Long Qinglan's true identity was waiting for him at the Origin Dragon Palace. This was shocking news. In fact, when Long Chen reached his current cultivation level, he had already surpassed the Eternal Dragon Emperor's cultivation level. He could even fight a godly king. Long Qinglan had never been able to do this in the past. He had already fulfilled his father's long-cherished wish and surpassed Long Qinglan's expectations. Back then, Long Qinglan hadn't become a god. But how had he died? What were the mysteries around him? Most importantly, what was up with the primordial divinity? Long Chen didn't believe that he was so much stronger than the Eternal Dragon Emperor. How could he not know these mysteries? There was only one reason. Long Qinglan wasn't as simple as he had imagined. This mysterious man had left Long Chen a long time ago, but every word he had said would forever remain in Long Chen's heart. Who are you? Long Chen said hurriedly. Don't ask too much. When you reach the Origin Dragon Palace, release the Origin Dragon soul. All the hopes of our race are on you. This was the last sentence. After saying this, the voice disappeared completely. No matter how Long Chen called out, it never appeared again. Just like the black dragon that had become a god, it had only appeared for a moment. When I reach the Origin Dragon Palace, release the Origin Dragon soul. If I want to know my father's true identity, I will go to the Origin Dragon Palace to find him. He will be waiting for me there. The prerequisite for all these secrets is to defeat the God King. Although Long Chen had many questions, his thoughts were clear. What he needed to do now was to become stronger and defeat the God King. Then he could follow the instructions to the Origin Dragon Palace. At that time, he would know what he wanted to know. Mo Xiaolang was still working hard, and so was Lingxi. In that case, the most important thing for him was to break through to the ultimate stage of the Tai Chi deity realm as soon as possible. He would only leave the divine planet of destiny when he was completely confident. Of course, he could not drag things out for too long because Divine Emperor Jun would descend personally. At that time, he might have to defeat Di Jun to enter the Origin Dragon Palace. That was impossible. The reason why he wants me to defeat the God King and enter the Origin Dragon Palace is because he's worried that I'm weaker than the God King. If I open the Origin Dragon Palace recklessly, it'll only benefit them. If I've guessed correctly, their objective this time should be the Origin Dragon Palace. Long Chen thought. He wasn't in a good mood, so he asked Yang Yu to come out. He told Yang Yu what he heard just now. Yang Yu was his mother, and also a wise person. She was naturally excited, but she was even calmer. She was as gentle as water as she said softly, Chen, there might be some things that they can't explain clearly. You've inherited too many things, and these were all given to you by your father. Such a great responsibility to protect and even save this world. Do you regret it? Do you blame him? Long Chen shook his head and said, no, he gave me everything. A real man should drink blood and fight. What's a mere responsibility? When I dragged out an ignoble existence in Biyao town, he was the one who gave me the opportunity to change my life. Naturally, I won't blame him, and I'm even more grateful to him. I'm not used to letting others control my fate and enslave me. Not in the past, and definitely not in the future. Yang Yu's gaze was deep, and there were traces of tears in her eyes. She pulled Long Chen into her arms and caressed his hair, saying, child, then fight bravely. No matter what, you will always have our support. We will love you as much as you love us. You are the pillar of all dragon warriors, and the future of this world. That's right, you're a real man, and you shouldn't be afraid of gods and devils. Just do as they say, defeat the God King, and find him. Let him give you an answer. All right. Long Chen couldn't hold back his tears. Just as he said, he never blamed Long Qinglan for giving him such a great responsibility and making him work so hard to bear all of this. This was his destiny, his persistence, and his character. After sending Yang Yu back to the God Nation, Long Chen's heart was as firm as iron. He always remembered Yang Yu's words. He was protecting the common people, and the common people were protecting him. Just like now, they were one. There was only one will in his heart, and that was to become stronger. He was fighting, and so was Mo Xiaolang. As time passed, Mo Xiaolang successfully reached the consummate stage Divine Lord realm, and he gradually climbed up the ranks among the gods. A common goal. 6 months later, Mo Xiaolang had devoured a total of 200 types of divine fires, leaving 100 types of divine fires and the heavenly emperor ancestral flame. Long Chen cultivated in peace. His heart was like iron, and he was as fierce as a violent dragon. No one could stop his will. To go to the Origin Dragon Palace to see him. Who was he? Why was he his father, and why was he the god of Taisher? He was also doing this for revenge, for the hatred of a husband. 6 months passed, a year passed, and close to a year and a half had passed. According to the time, Divine Emperor Di Jun might descend on the dragon sacrificial continent any time in the next year or so. Long Chen had been in seclusion for a year and a half. For a year and a half. Just for this moment. Rumble. The primordial divine dragon heavenly tribulation source power surged again. The willpower of all living beings had been accumulated for too long. It was the trillions of living beings that had pushed him to his current realm. When cultivating, he was of one mind and one mind with everyone. He advanced another realm. At this moment, he was only one step away from the great essence God realm. He was the only one in the history of the myriad worlds who had just become a god and did not rely on devouring to reach the ultimate stage of the great essence God realm in just a few years. The second goal was finally completed. He did not know what had happened outside, did not know if the God Kings were still guarding outside. He only knew that perhaps the time for the decisive battle was near. Of course, he did not dare to relax, because he was about to face 4 God Kings. Even with the Destiny Heavenly Eye, even if he reached the ultimate stage of the Great Essence God Realm, Long Chen was only confident that he could fight against the God King of Hell. Fighting against 4 God Kings alone was simply impossible. After all, there was still a terrifying character like God King Ink Desolation. Every God King was a peak existence in the myriad worlds, and only 1 in a trillion living beings could be born. He walked out of that space and returned to the abyss. Big brother Long Chen. Soi Eon was naturally very surprised when she saw him. After all, Long Chen had been cultivating for more than a year, and he did not come out even once. Mo Xiaolang was also very crazy, but she was quite bored. "You've changed." Seeing Long Chen for the first time, Sui Yan was stunned and looked at him in a daze. She could not describe what exactly had changed with Long Chen, but she had a feeling that he had become mysterious and unfathomable, yet firm and pure. That pair of eyes, in particular, seemed to contain countless living beings, countless lives, as vast as the universe, endless and boundless. "How have you changed?" Long Chen smiled faintly. "I don't know, you've become even more beautiful." Sui Yan could not describe it clearly, so she casually flattered him. But all her attention was still on Mo Xiaolang. At this time, the colorful sun-devouring demonic wolf in the abyss raised its head and saw Long Chen. "Big brother." At this time, there was only one flame left in the entire abyss, and it was the Sky Emperor Ancestral flame. The other divine flames had been devoured by Mo Xiaolang. Now, Mo Xiaolang had close to 400 types of divine flames, and there were almost no duplicates. It was hard to imagine how terrifying he was now, especially when he also had the 9 nether demonic ancestral flame. The strength of a perfected divine lord. But his combat strength was probably close to a final divine lord, or even close to Biyao. Moreover, he had a new space, and that was the Sky Emperor Ancestral Flame. A scorching heat rushed over. The 9 nether demonic ancestral flame led the 400 types of ancestral flames to fight against the Sky Emperor Ancestral Flame. "Big brother, are you done?" Mo Xiaolang asked. He could sense the changes in Long Chen more than Sui Yan. The current Long Chen had already merged with all living beings, and he was a weapon for trillions of living beings. "Yes. I only have one last step left. Wait for me for a while." Mo Xiaolang smiled. He was very relaxed. "I'm waiting to widen my horizons." Long Chen smiled warmly. Their conversation seemed to make people forget that they were about to rush out of this place and engage in the most crucial battle. The sun-devouring demonic wolf went to face the Sky Emperor Ancestral Flame. I'm afraid I'll have to use you in this battle." Long Chen sat down cross-legged beside the abyss. He still had a crucial mission that he had yet to complete. I'm not afraid. I've thought it through. I'll eat whoever bullies me." Sui Yan said in a silly manner. "Very good." Long Chen nodded. The day of the battle was not far away. "I wonder if they expected me to rush out." Godly King of Hell, Long Chen had waited for this moment for too long. It was because he could endure that he could improve so quickly and reach his current realm. But Long Chen was still not satisfied. "I wonder if I can defeat the Godly King of Hell, enter the Origin Dragon Palace, complete the mission, and escape from here. Will I be able to escape from Godly Emperor Jun?" That was a matter for the future. While Mo Xiaolang was preparing to subdue the Sky Emperor Ancestral Flame, Long Chen was trying out a new idea. Refining blood into qi should be one of the more terrifying abilities of the primordial blood spiritual dragon. It's just that I haven't been able to fully comprehend it, and I've only scratched the surface of it in the past. I'll use this time to see if I can use the rules to restore this ability. If possible, then he would be Devil Wa, Mo Xiaolang. He could also devour. Devouring Bloodline. Chapter 27:18. It had been more than a year since the Star of Destiny was sealed. 1.5 years ago, the Storm God Emperor announced that Long Chen had been killed. Therefore, to most people, Long Chen was already dead. This was a world that had lost its genius and was now under the rule of the gods. The death of Long Chen didn't cause a huge commotion, because people could vaguely feel Long Chen's existence. Perhaps this was the power of faith. After more than a year, the connection between Long Chen and them became even closer. Therefore, they believed that Long Chen was still alive. Later on, almost everyone knew that because the gods couldn't do anything to Long Chen, they still wanted to save face, so they claimed that Long Chen had been killed. But that wasn't the case. Because of this, the prestige and reputation of the ancient gods dropped a lot. Indeed, to all living beings, an ancestral god that relied on lying to deceive all living beings, did not seem very wise. Moreover, during this period of time, they had seen too many confrontations between Long Chen and them. What they displayed was not wisdom and love for all living beings, but selfishness and arrogance. They were like rulers, not gods. Long Chen, on the other hand, was much better. He had two great achievements. The first was defeating the city lord of the wronged in the three great imperial domains, and the second was risking his life to fight against the primordial demon race. These achievements all reflected his spirit. He was the true savior. Even though the gods tried their best to smear his name and put many unwarranted crimes on him, people were not idiots. They all had sharp eyes and could see clearly who was right and who was wrong. Because of the support of people, Long Chen successfully broke through to the ultimate level of the Tai Chi divine realm. On this day, the divine city of Hell, which had been quiet for a long time, was exceptionally lively. Among the gods of the human clan, monster clan, oceanic clan and sorcerer clan, there were many gods who came to the divine city of Hell with well-prepared gifts. Today was the birthday of the godly king of Hell. Tens of millions of years ago, the king of Hell came to the world. Every 10,000 years or so, the god king of Hell would celebrate his birthday. This was his unique custom. On this day, several hundred divinities gathered at Hell's divine city. Many reputable gods had arrived. Regrettably, there were a lot of ultimate realm gods missing. Without the few who were really important, the birthday seemed to be very bleak. The light god king was still looking for the mysterious palace. Among all the god kings, only the starry god king had come. The Hell god king and the starry god king had been guarding the divine planet of destiny, but they had only returned recently. After all, Long Chen hadn't come out for more than a year, so it was impossible for him to come out now. For more than a year, they had at least two godly kings guarding the divine planet of destiny at all times just to be safe. Later on, God King Ink Desolation received a mission and left first. After 3 rounds of wine, the God King of Hell looked at the hundreds of deities below him. Even though it was his birthday, his gaze was still deep and solemn. At this moment, he said, God King Ink Desolation has already completed the mission of the Endless Cosmos Mountain and found the crucial point of this mission. He is currently on his way back and should be able to return in a short period of time. The Endless Mountain of Universe was another world that was adjacent to the Dragon Sacrificial Continent. It was on the opposite side of the Spirit Essence Star Ocean, but it was slightly further away. In the Endless Mountain of Universe, the divinities were slightly stronger than the Spirit Essence Star Ocean. There might even be godly kings. But once God King Ink Desolation made a move, they were suppressed. More than a year ago, the divine planet of destiny had just been sealed. God King Ink Desolation was about to wait for him to come out when he received the mission from the Endless Mountain of Universe and hurried over. Godly King, can I ask, what is the mission of the Endless Mountain of Universe? What did we get? One of the divinities asked. After all, it was one of the worlds adjacent to the Dragon Sacrificial Continent. It was reasonable for it to be related to the Dragon Sacrificial Continent. For example, the Spirit Essence Star Ocean, even the Spirit Race directly reproduced on the Dragon Sacrificial Continent. The Hell God King shook his head and said, "This has nothing to do with you." Here, he looked at Biyao in the corner and asked, "Princess, the God King said that in about 2 years, he will arrive here from the Taihao territory, right?" Biyao said lightly, "Less than 2 years, maybe a year or so. He will arrive with 7 other godly kings. The 2 monster god emperors are also in the team, and of course, the godly kings of the monster race." The Hell God King couldn't help but laugh and said, looking at the situation, "In these 2 years, that bastard Long Chen will not come out from the divine planet of destiny. When the God King arrives, he will have nowhere to run. Plus, he might be related to that palace. No matter what, we cannot let him escape. In a few days, I will go with Xingfeng to guard there." Beside him was the Starry Sky Dragon, the God King of Starry Sky. Starry Sky's younger brother, Xingchen, was next to Biyao, trying to please her. He smiled and said, God Kings, you don't have to be so cautious. Princess Biyao has made great progress this year. She is more than enough to deal with Long Chen. It's just that Demon Hua is still a headache. Hearing this, the other gods congratulated Biyao. That's right. Long Chen killed the 6 godly monarchs because of the strange dragon in the divine planet of destiny. In a real battle, he is no match for the 6 godly monarchs. Now that Princess Biyao is so powerful, it will be easy for her to become a godly king in the future. I don't think Long Chen will ever dare to come out. He can only be a coward. Hearing this, the Hell God King smiled and asked, Princess, do you have any good news for us? Biyao said proudly, when Long Chen comes out of the divine planet of destiny, hand him over to me. I've been preparing for this for a year, and I've learned a new rule. It's even more powerful than emotional wound. With his strength, he won't be able to withstand it. The Hell God King nodded and said, can you tell us what this rule is called? Biyao didn't hide it at all. She said proudly, sad heavens. Just from the name alone, it's quite extraordinary. All right, if Long Chen dares to come out of there in 2 years, we will hand him over to you. Let the princess avenge herself. The gods cheered and celebrated. Biyao's eyes flashed with a hint of disdain. For a mere Long Chen, the gods were so nervous. It was funny. In the past year, she had thought it through. A genius was just a genius. As long as she had her parents behind her, Long Chen would never be able to compete with her. In fact, she didn't want Long Chen to come out of the divine planet of destiny after the Shenhuang returned. If that happened, she probably wouldn't have the chance to avenge herself. Long Chen wouldn't be a man if that happened. What she wanted the most was for Long Chen to come out and fight her fair and square. I hope you have the guts. I will wait for you on the divine planet of destiny. Therefore, she left early and went to the divine planet of destiny. Go back to work. Don't wait for the Shenhuang to return. We still haven't found the palace. How are we going to explain it to the Shenhuang then? The Hell God King scolded. Then, he followed the Starry God King. The two followed Biyao and went to the divine planet of destiny in the north. The Light God King stayed on the dragon sacrificial continent and continued to look for the palace. Of course, Long Chen didn't know what was happening outside. The eyes of all living beings were his eyes. At least, he knew that the living beings were good now. The eternal opal had brought them great vitality. However, he didn't know what the gods were doing. None of this was important. They were about to get out. He sat cross-legged on the abyss, and Soi Yan was guarding beside him. At this time, Mo Xiaolang, who had been dormant for a long time, finally launched an attack on the violent ancestral fire of the Firmament Emperor. This was destined to be a battle of the pinnacle. Now, Mo Xiaolang had devoured hundreds of kinds of divine fires. These hundreds of divine fires merged with the ancestral fire of the netherworld and turned into a part of the ancestral fire of the netherworld, forming an extremely cold flame. Every part of his body, even a hair, was burning with the ancestral fire of the netherworld. In front of him, the pale white ancestral fire of the Firmament Emperor gradually changed and turned into a white flaming tiger, staring at Mo Xiaolang. The ancestral fire of the Firmament Emperor knew that Mo Xiaolang wanted to devour it. This was a battle between a wolf and a tiger. The ancestral fire of the netherworld was like a wolf, quiet, patient, and mysterious. As for the ancestral fire of the Firmament Emperor, it was like a fierce tiger, violent, with the might of an emperor and unparalleled tyranny. A battle between two ancestral fires. Currently, they were almost equal. Long Chen knew that this battle would last for a certain amount of time, perhaps more than half a year. He had full confidence in Mo Xiaolang, especially after he devoured the hundreds of divine fires. Battle, passion, and hot blood. Bang! Extreme cold and extreme hot flames collided. From this moment on, the brutal slaughter began. Mo Xiaolang was unable to suppress the ancestral fire of the Firmament Emperor, so this was destined to be a battle of willpower to the death. At the beginning, victory or defeat didn't matter. For example, at the beginning, the sun-devouring demonic wolf was not as violent as the white tiger and was being suppressed. Only Mo Xiaolang had some leeway. Below, the two giant beasts were slaughtering each other. Above, Long Chen closed his eyes. He could still see this battle, and then many things appeared in his mind. He focused his attention on the slaughter law. On one hand, he was watching Mo Xiaolang and the ancestral fire of the Firmament Emperor. On the other hand, he was thinking back to the blood refinement chi. That was a very shallow use of the ancient blood spirit dragon's mystique, but it had helped Long Chen find a way. He thought of the first time, when he used his dragon claw to pierce the heart of the underground blood lizard. That feeling made one's heart throb. He had devoured the bloodline of the underground blood lizard and turned it into his own power. The ancient blood spirit dragon was a slaughter god dragon, and this was one of his killing methods. Now, after Long Chen's many thoughts, it gradually took shape. Otherwise, he would also become stronger. You bunch of unscrupulous things, all of you are getting stronger and stronger. You just like to bully underage kitten like me. After Mo Xiaolang succeeded, Long Chen was still making the final push. He knew that Mo Xiaolang had succeeded. His tenacious last fight had also helped Long Chen, who was a spectator, a lot. Now, he was in a sea of blood. It was like the first time he saw the ancient blood spiritual dragon. In the sea of blood below, there was an incomparably huge divine dragon. The sea of blood was boundless, and there was no end at all. Refining blood into chi should be called blood devouring. Almost there. After half a year of hard work, he had finally succeeded today. He opened his arms, and the sea of blood rushed to the sky. Endless blood rained down on him, but he miraculously devoured all of it. At this moment, every dragon scale on his body was like an evil mouth. Rumble. Long Chen opened his eyes. A trace of evil blood flashed in the eyes of the Destiny Heavenly Eye and the Heart of Hope. Big Brother. Mo Xiaolang and Soi Eon stood in front of him. They realized that Long Chen had become even more mysterious and unpredictable. His temperament was constantly changing. Sometimes he was ferocious and cold, sometimes he was mysterious and ethereal, sometimes he was compassionate, sometimes he was just and strict, and sometimes he was quiet and peaceful. No matter which side of him it was, he was so real. Long Chen looked around, then at the two of them. He chuckled. After hiding here for 2 years, we have all undergone great transformations. It is time to leave. To take revenge. Defeat the Divine King, meet him at the Origin Dragon Palace. Okay. Mo Xiaolang nodded firmly. Long Chen said, we still have to plan. I want to kill the Divine King of Hell, and you can help me block the Divine King of Starry Sky and the Divine King of Light. There is still the Divine King of Ink Desolation, which is the most difficult to deal with. Even if we go out, we cannot do it openly. We need to be careful in order to succeed. Although the three of them were very powerful, they were still lacking a little. Moreover, the Divine King of Ink Desolation still had the order-level fortune artifact. They could not be underestimated. The people of the God Nation were very confident about their transformations. They could not stay here forever. After all, the Divine Emperor Jun would come eventually. Right now, he must not have returned yet. Long Chen had this confidence. Come in first. He let Mo Xiaolang and Soi Eon stay in the God Nation first. Then, he used the rule of time to enter the Time Dragon. Perhaps even the Divine King would not be able to find him if he secretly left the God Nation. His attainments in the rule of time were also very deep. Just like how you tried to assassinate Lingxi, it is time to pay with blood. Long Chen did not have to choose to do it openly. He only wanted to pay with blood. But at this time, the Lingxi he had been waiting for finally changed. The peerless beauty's body suddenly trembled and she suddenly opened her eyes. She, who had obtained the pure immortal original body, had become very different. Her eyes were deep and pure, like a fairy from the 9 heavens, untainted and inviolable. In front of him was the orange statue of Ling Su. "Is it done?" Long Chen asked. "Yes, this heavenly rule spiritual art is called the Art of One Heaven." After succeeding, it was time for Lingxi to leave and return to his side. Although they could see each other all the time, Long Chen still missed her. But it was not over yet. When Lingxi comprehended the Art of One Heaven, the orange statue suddenly started to disperse, turning into a monstrous god power that poured into Lingxi's body. That was the purest god's spiritual power. Long Chen did not know what Celestial Emperor Ling Su had done, but when the vast god's spiritual power entered Lingxi's body, it actually became Lingxi's god power. This was simply unimaginable. Even gods would find it hard to directly inherit power, but Celestial Emperor Ling Su did it. Firstly, Lingxi's pure immortal source body was extremely resilient. Secondly, the power that appeared was too compatible with her. There was no other pure immortal source body in this world, and there was no other power as pure as this. Thirdly, there was a profound change in the laws that resulted in a direct god power inheritance. Clearly, Celestial Emperor Ling Su had sealed all her power here. Lingxi was a little dazed at the start, but as her power increased, she also got stronger. She said, "It should be like this." Each of these 18 heavenly rule spiritual arts contains the power of Celestial Emperor Ling Su's inheritance. When I comprehend one of them, I will be able to obtain the power of this statue. This way, I will only need to comprehend the heavenly rule spiritual art to get stronger. I don't need to waste time on slow cultivation. Although it is still not easy, I am considered fast if I only need to comprehend the heavenly rule spiritual art. This meant that she didn't need to worry about the power that even Long Chen and Mo Xiaolang had to worry about. There were still 17 statues left. Her cultivation path as a god only needed to improve on the laws. Not just the heavenly rule spiritual art, but also the Ling Su god sword Dao. She had to improve on all 3 laws. This was a huge gift from Celestial Emperor Ling Su. This kind of power inheritance is very difficult to carry out. Firstly, this inheritance itself is one of the 18 heavenly rules spirit techniques. Only God Emperor Ling Su knows it. Secondly, it has to be an inheritance between the original source bodies of Su Xian. So she did it. But the prerequisite is that I have to improve on the laws to trigger it. The One Heaven Heart art itself was a very high-level law. Chapter 27:20. Of course, Long Chen was just giving her a suggestion. If she wanted to come back now, that was fine. He just wasn't sure if the remaining 17 statues would still be there when she left. But he was worried too much. Just as he spoke, the 17 statues entered Lingxi's divine kingdom and stood there. When she needed to cultivate, she could come into contact with these statues at any time. She could also cultivate the dozens of heavenly spirit techniques at any time. But once she entered the cultivation state, she would be cut off from the outside world. She needed to be more focused. Putting away the remaining 17 statues, Lingxi said, "I'll come back now. There are still many people in the 5 great dragon cities who don't know that I'm still alive." Apart from the Dragon Emperor and the others, not many know, she was finally coming back. Even if she wasn't in any danger, Long Chen was still worried about her. Back then, the God King of Hell could easily crush them, but it was different now. Long Chen wasn't the same as before, and Lingxi wasn't the same as before. This was a huge surprise for the millions of dragon martial artists in the 5 great dragon cities. These days, for Long Chen, were full of surprises. Not only did he obtain the inheritance blood essence of the primordial heavenly fate dragon, but he also reached the ultimate realm of the Tai Chi spirit realm. The people around him had become stronger, and Lingxi was also about to return. The dragon martial artists had gotten used to living in the divine kingdom during this time. For them, Long Chen's divine kingdom was like a new continent. They could hardly feel the difference between the inside and the outside. Today, Long Chen suddenly arrived and said, "Everyone, today I have good news to announce to everyone." Because it was Long Chen's voice, all the dragon martial artists woke up from their cultivation, full of reverence and expectation. The dragon emperors were currently chatting together. Seeing Long Chen appear, the violent blood dragon emperor smiled and said, "Isn't it just that Xiao Lang subdued the heaven emperor ancestral flame and reached the ultimate realm of the great essence spirit realm? We all know." "That's right. This is indeed great news. You bunch of youngsters are too amazing. We old fellows don't even know where to put our faces." The eternal dragon emperor's words made the dragon warriors roar with laughter. However, Long Chen smiled. While everyone was discussing, he said mysteriously, "Of course, this is one of the good news, but it's not the good news I want to tell you. Perhaps everyone will be surprised, so be prepared." Words could not describe the excitement in his heart at this moment. When Lingxi was assassinated, his heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife and he swore to take revenge. Although Lingxi was unharmed, she had endured to this day. Her hatred had only deepened and had never dissipated. He constantly remembered what had happened back then. His words made everyone quiet down. The dragon emperors had actually guessed it. They couldn't help but smile because they knew how important this was to Long Chen. Now that he had the power to take revenge, he could make it public. "Let's welcome her." On the other side, Lingxi was returning. Back then, she had arrived at the Sky Supreme Sword Sea in the blink of an eye. She had left from Long Chen's God Kingdom. Now, she would definitely return here. When Long Chen's words fell, a beautiful woman, with a pure and flawless light, suddenly appeared beside Long Chen. For a moment it was like a fairy from the ninth heaven had descended, holy and boundless, bathing people in an incomparably pleasant and comfortable light. That peerlessly beautiful face, that pure smile that made people feel comfortable, and that ethereal pair of eyes were all so familiar to the dragon warriors. Back then, it was precisely because Lingxi had laid down the universe teleportation formation that they were able to protect the 5 great dragon cities. Lingxi, for a moment, many people almost suffocated. They couldn't imagine that this dead person had actually reappeared and returned here unscathed. More importantly, she had become even more powerful, completing the transformation from a human to a god. These millions of people were stunned for a moment. Lingxi was too beautiful, so beautiful that they forgot the passage of time. In their eyes, there was only this beautiful woman. She wasn't dead. Long Chen took her hand and said loudly, "Everyone, in fact, after the assassination, although she was seriously injured, she didn't die. But the murderer, the God King of Hell, thought that she was already dead, so I could only beat him at his own game. For this reason, I hid it from everyone and let everyone feel sad for me. But I believe that everyone won't blame me for this. Everything I did, it was for revenge." He bellowed out the last 2 words. Everyone could understand his decision. If he told everyone that Lingxi wasn't dead, then the news would leak out and the God King of Hell would find out. At that time, it wouldn't be so difficult for him to take revenge with peace of mind. If the God King of Hell knew that Long Chen already knew that he was the murderer, he probably wouldn't let Long Chen have the space to grow in peace. And Long Chen wouldn't be who he was today. They wouldn't blame Long Chen. Instead, it was Long Chen who had given them a huge surprise. They respected Lingxi because she was also a person worthy of respect. Her death had indeed made countless people feel sorry and pained, but her return also brought too many people excitement and joy. Many people couldn't help but burst into tears, cheering for Long Chen and Lingxi. It was lively. "No matter what, we support you. Gods are immoral, so they should pay the price. It's time for revenge. We didn't target them, but their God King assassinated Miss Lingxi. The heavenly Tao is unfair, so let's punish the heavens. Fortunately, Miss Lingxi didn't die, but this hatred must be avenged. They were forced to come to this divine planet of destiny, and they lost their homes and dignity. Everyone was angry. The ancient gods didn't have the divine Tao. They were selfish and did whatever they wanted. The dragon warriors supported Long Chen to fight, to make them pay the price. They trusted Long Chen, and they believed that he had the power to make the God King of Hell pay the price. They couldn't wait any longer, otherwise, when the God King returned, everything would be over. This was their love. Long Chen hugged Lingxi's slim waist. Their understanding and support made Long Chen's blood boil, making him extremely excited. Today, he finally reunited with Lingxi. She had suffered too much, and Long Chen didn't dare to promise her this time, so he could only protect her with his life. What happened last time, he absolutely couldn't allow it to happen again. In the midst of the cheers, Mo Xiaolang hugged Soi Yan. Big bro Xiaolang. Soi Yan blushed, feeling a little uncomfortable in front of so many people. Mo Xiaolang said, "Yes, are you ready? You're going to take charge." Soi Yan nodded, "All right, I'll do my part too. For big bro Long Chen's revenge, I'll do my best to help him stop a God King." Only resistance could release the passion in their hearts. Lingxi would stay here, and after returning, she still had tears in her eyes even though she had suffered a lot. Now, they were all rebels, and they were willing to give their all. Focus on cultivating heavenly rules and spirit arts. With so many people here, we won't be lonely. As for revenge, leave it to me. Long Chen whispered in her ear. Although Lingxi's progress was terrifying, the opponent this time was too strong. She was still lacking. Now, she could only say that her future achievements wouldn't be any worse than Biyao's. All right. Lingxi was also someone who knew her limits. She landed in front of the Dragon Emperor and hugged Yang Yu. With these seniors around, at least Lingxi wouldn't be lonely. Her smile and gaze filled Long Chen with hope. Ready to go. Long Chen was getting ready to leave the Palace of Destiny. After inheriting the chaotic destiny dragon's essence blood, he had a way to leave this place whenever he wanted. Maybe next time, he could even come back to the Palace of Destiny to hide. Long Chen opened the door to the Heavenly Palace of Destiny. Outside was the Labyrinth of Destiny, but he knew the way out. The labyrinth was constantly changing, but he was the controller, so he knew the exit. The suppression of laws, from gods to mortals. This is the law of the Heavenly Eye of Destiny. Long Chen's Heavenly Eye of Destiny had the same effect as the Labyrinth of Destiny. Soon, he found a large door. After exiting, he arrived at the bottomless pit. Then, he looked up and saw many small white snakes. These snakes are the same as the black dragons in the curse world. They're all cursed dragons. They're bound by something called the shackles of destiny. They will be trapped here for all eternity, losing their destiny. How can I save them? Along the way, there were countless small white snakes. They were curled up together in a daze, sleeping in this endless abyss. Long Chen's heart was filled with sorrow, but he was also filled with pride. One day, I'll make the dragon sacrificial continent truly strong again. I'll free the white dragons and black dragons from their curses, and let the dragons descend upon the dragon sacrificial continent again. This was his biggest dream. Now, his biggest dream was to defeat the Divine King and go to the Origin Dragon Palace to see him. He came to the top of the bottomless pit. The outside was sealed, but of course, Long Chen could easily leave. Chapter 27-21. The three of them were now together. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed since they last saw each other. 2 years might seem long to Long Chen, but to the gods, it was just a snap of the fingers. He just wasn't used to such a long time. In reality, the amount of time he had lived was less than a fraction of the god's lifespan. That was why he was a miracle. Under his influence, Mo Xiaolang and the others had become miracles. Long Chen used the familiar time dragon to escape into the river of time and quietly approached. Although he was still very far away, he could already see the three. Among them, Star God King and Hell God King were cultivating together, while Biyao should have just come to find them. After 2 years, this white-haired woman had become even more enchanting. She was still as beautiful as ever, and her figure was exquisite. The prestige of the God King princess made people not dare to look at her directly, let alone have wild thoughts. Few people in the infinite worlds had the right to enjoy a woman of such status. Even though she had fallen into love and her blonde hair turned white, she was still extraordinarily beautiful, adding to her endless charm. Of course, in Long Chen's eyes, compared to Lingxi, this bad-tempered Biyao was only beautiful and noble, everything else was dog shit. Long Chen still wanted to hear what they were talking about. Soon, he heard a very useful piece of news. Biyao said with some pride, "I just asked my dad. He will be here in about a year or two. Although Long Chen is hiding here, he won't be of any use." Hell God King nodded, "That's true. Once the God King comes, we won't have to stay in this crappy place anymore. It's just that the mission isn't complete yet. I really don't have the face to see the God King." Biyao said, "It doesn't matter. My father said that the place isn't easy to find in the first place. During this period of time, just focus on guarding Long Chen. If he escapes, that would be a great crime." The two God Kings nodded helplessly. They didn't expect that they, as God Kings, would do such a thing after coming here. Long Chen thought that it was a close call. There was only a year left. If he had come out after another year, not to mention revenge, he would have lost his life. The infernal deity king scolded and said, "Mo Huang, that old geezer is finally coming back in about a month or so. This fella's luck was good, and he was arranged to go to the endless Cosmos Mountain, so he didn't have to stand guard here. When he comes back, it'll be his turn to enjoy this place." His personality was considered the most active among the four godly kings. God King Ink Desolation went to the endless Cosmos Mountain. To Long Chen, this was great news. After hearing this news, he almost decided to make a move. He had to do it within these few days. Otherwise, when God King Ink Desolation returned a month later, he wouldn't have such a good opportunity. Now that there were three godly kings, even if they gathered together, it would only be a little dangerous. This danger mainly came from Sui Yan and Mo Xiaolang. After all, there were many uncertainties about a godly king, and it wasn't something that could be done just by persevering and resisting. If there was an accident, Mo Xiaolang and Sui Yan would be in danger. Even Long Chen himself was only here for revenge. He couldn't be absolutely sure that he could defeat the infernal deity king. Therefore, even if God King Ink Desolation wasn't here, he still needed to observe carefully for a day or two to find the best opportunity. "Oh right, Princess, did you come here today to find the two of us?" the infernal deity king asked lightly. Diao's face was cold as she said, "No, I just thought of a good way to force Long Chen out. I can't wait until the day my father returns. Besides, the God Emperor had ordered us not to touch the living beings on the dragon sacrificial continent, so we didn't think about this. But if there are thousands or tens of thousands of people, as long as we do it discreetly, it won't be a problem." In Long Chen's heart, these thousands of people are more important than hundreds of millions of people. Biyao sneered proudly, "That's right. Let's do it this way. The two godly kings will stay here and wait for Long Chen to come out in anger. Then, we will capture him. Meanwhile, I will go to the dragon sacrificial continent and secretly find all the people he knows and gather them together. I don't believe that Long Chen can't feel it. If I kill a few people every day, one day, he will come out." At this point, she and the two godly kings couldn't help but laugh. "That's an excellent idea. It's just that we overlooked it before." With Long Chen's personality, he definitely wouldn't be able to accept such a result. That naive fellow really thinks that everything will be fine once he brings the 5 great dragon cities into the divine kingdom. The Hell Godly King sneered. The Starry Sky Godly King said, "In that case, let's not delay and start immediately." They were already very eager and looking forward to what was about to happen. Actually, their main goal was to force Long Chen out. It didn't matter how many people died. As long as there weren't hundreds of millions of deaths, they didn't violate the rules. In the eyes of gods, the lives of living beings were really too insignificant. After listening to all this, Long Chen's view of Biyao changed even more. She was a woman who would do anything to achieve her goals. Her desire to take revenge on Long Chen and make Long Chen suffer had never stopped. Maybe she really liked Long Chen, but it was also a kind of abnormal love, a kind of domination. As such, although her smile was beautiful, the hostility hidden in it was also moving. This divine emperor princess, her change was getting bigger and bigger. Perhaps, ever since she grew up, she had never been unable to obtain anything. She dared to set her sights on the divine dragon nation and the 3 sovereign regions. How shameless. However, the gods had always been like this, and the Hell Godly King and the others were the best of the best. The 5 dragon cities were Long Chen's reverse scale, and so were the divine dragon nation and the 3 sovereign regions. Biyao Town, Yuanling City, Sanyang Imperial City, God Wushu Sage Dynasty, Divine Dragon Nation, and so on. There were many of Long Chen's former companions, such as the Dragon's companions, Soyan's sister, Lui. On the 3 sovereign regions side, there were True Martial Emperor Palace, Sword Spirit Emperor Palace, and so on. If they were touched. That's right, Long Chen would rush out of Divine Planet Destiny. However, they were one step too late. Long Chen had already rushed out of Divine Planet Destiny. At this time, Biyao had made an agreement with the 2 godly kings. She would go find all the people that Long Chen knew, and the 2 godly kings would stay here and wait for the dragon chariot to appear. Long Chen had just reached the full circle of Tai Chi Divine Realm not long ago. They could never imagine that Long Chen could make such an almost impossible progress in such a short time. Biyao set off. Long Chen followed her. Since she had chosen to do this, it was time to give her a surprise. Everyone has to pay for their mistakes, even if you are the daughter of the Divine Emperor, Princess Biyao. Her decision made Long Chen hate her even more. How could such a woman compare to Lingxi? She was born noble, but she was filthy. She descended directly from Divine Planet Destiny to Dragon Sacrificial Continent, then searched for the godly dragon nation and the 3 sovereign domains. Finally, her godly body descended above the primordial graveyard. The 3 sovereign domains were on the left, and the godly dragon nation was on the right. They were all Long Chen's hometown. Long Chen followed behind her. He hadn't returned to this place for a long time, and he missed it. This time, Long Chen decided that he would take away all the people and things that were deeply related to him and protect them. Otherwise, with how despicable the gods were, they would definitely bring him a lifetime of pain and suffering. In the storm, Biyao stood against the wind. Her hair was white like snow, and her figure was exquisite. Her snow-white skin had an amazing luster, and her exquisite face made people drool. She was like a goddess descending from the sky, silent and undetectable. She did not want to make too much noise. With Poplar Town as the source, her will began to search everyone's memory. She was a god, and this was her ability. Soon, she locked on to a small town and sneered, this should be his starting point. Then, this family has to come up. She stretched out her hand and grabbed at the void. Suddenly, Yang Xueqing, the Yang clan ancestor, Yang Qingxian, Yang Yuntian, Yang Wu, Yang Lingyue, and so on appeared in front of Biyao. Chapter 27-22. The people of the Yang family stared at the shining goddess in front of them. They knew that the gods had returned, and they knew that Long Chen was in the divine planet of destiny. For them, Long Chen was already a legend. Although they were worried about Long Chen, they didn't expect that the gods would find them. The goddess in front of them was arrogant, domineering, and cold. She was just like the daughter of the god emperor in the legends, Princess Biyao, who had a relationship with Long Chen. Long Chen was too glorious, which made them feel like they were living in a dream. They didn't dare to make too much noise, so they hid their identities. They didn't expect that they would be caught by the gods today. No one in the Yang family dared to say anything, because Biyao didn't even talk to them. Biyao continued to look for people, and Long Chen didn't stop her. He was waiting for Biyao to find all the people who were related to him, so that he could protect them and bring them into the godly nation. What he was looking forward to was how surprised Biyao would be when he appeared. She must be afraid of him. Then, it was Yuanling's city. Those who were related to Long Chen or Mo Xiaolang, as long as they were close to each other, showed up one by one, such as the sexy and charming Deacon Lu Lan, and Mo Xiaolang's sister Yin Mengyao, and so on. Then, it was the Sangyang kingdom. No one's memory could escape the search of Biyao. She was good at the rule of forgetting love, and love was closely related to memory. Sky Devil Palace, Zhao Qingyun, Murongyu. And Long Chen's adoptive father, Dongfang Xianshao, and Xian Ku. They came here one by one, but they couldn't escape Biyao's eyes. Especially Zhao Qingyun and Dongfang Xianshao, they were the most important elders to Long Chen when he just started cultivating. Without them, there wouldn't be today's Long Chen. Long Chen could see them at any time, but he was too high up now, so he didn't want to disturb their stable life, but he could communicate with them at any time. Of course, it had been a long time since he saw them face to face. Biyao did not let a single one of them go. Her gaze shifted to the divine Wuxia sage dynasty, and no one could escape her search. From the current ruler of the divine Wuxia sage dynasty, the guy with the same name as Long Chen, then the 6 brothers and sisters of the dragons, Long Yu and Jiang Wuya, and then the grown-up and beautiful Huang Fuqi. They were all listening to Long Chen's story, still remembering this heroic figure who had fought alongside them. In the end, there was a person who made Biyao look at her in a new light. She was the delicate and charming Lu Yi, who practiced medicine all over the world. This guy is showing mercy everywhere, yet he's not taking responsibility. He really deserves to die. Looks like you and I are both in the same boat. It's a pity that you're just an ant. Biyao smiled disdainfully. After the initial shock, Lu Yi roughly figured out what had happened. Although he did not know some of the people around him, those who knew him were all related to Long Chen. Then there was the entire Divine Dragon Nation. Bai Suxue and the others also appeared here, and were personally captured by Biyao. You're that demon was sister? And that Long Chen's little lover? 2 identities. Looks like you're the most important here. Biyao could not help but giggle. It was just a random thought. She did not expect to gain so much this time. Of course, she did not stop there. In the end, her will descended upon the 3 emperor domains. The 3 emperor domains were more concentrated, which made things much easier. From the true martial emperor palace, those evil dragon palace companions, all the people he knew, and Feng Jilin, whom he had pestered countless times, Lingxi's parents were at the sword spirit emperor palace. And Long Xing from the 9-star chaos city, and Yi Xian from the nether god palace. They were all very important people in Long Chen's life. A total of more than 200 people were imprisoned by Biyao, all under her control. Looking at the hundreds of people, Biyao could not help but giggle. The feeling of looking at their fearful eyes was too good. She had known since she was young that living beings were just a joke. They were not on the same level as her. Although they looked the same on the outside, they were on a different level of life. She was the ruler, while they were livestock. Looking at these people, she felt the stories between them and Long Chen. It had to be said that these stories were very interesting. It made Biyao feel that Long Chen was even more amazing. But that was all. To her, even the battle with the city lord of the wronged city was just a small fight, a fight between 2 ants. Biyao's oppressive eyes swept across the crowd. Today, I brought everyone here to ask for a small favor. Long Chen has been hiding in the divine planet of destiny for too long. I hope you can call him out. This was more or less what everyone had expected. But no one could resist a god. The Lingwu swordmaster was the strongest here. After the eternal opal descended, it brought him great changes, allowing him to rush into the Nirvana realm, and then the rebirth realm. Now, he was one of the strongest in the Draconic continent. He was Lingxi's father. He said, Divine Emperor Princess, if Long Chen wants to come out, he will. He is a genius and has long separated himself from us. He may not care about us, so what you are doing is useless. He knew that no matter what, he could not harm Long Chen and Lingxi. In fact, the news of Lingxi's death was only spread in the eternal sacred realm. He did not know yet. Useless? You are Lingxi's father, right? Do you know that your daughter is dead? Biyao laughed mockingly. Her dazzling eyes made it hard for people to look at her directly. The Lingwu swordmaster was dazed, but he made up his mind. He comforted the woman next to him. I believe in Long Chen. These words made Long Chen very excited. This was his father-in-law. His words were more important than anything else. All right, I'm not going to talk nonsense with you guys. Biyao reached out her hand. Suddenly, 3 women were sucked in front of her. They were Lu Yi, Su Shue, and Feng Jilin. Long Chen is very protective of the fairer sex. Since you were infatuated with him and fell in love with him, he must have doted on you as well. He will definitely come back to save you. Let's start with you. You must tell Long Chen that if he doesn't come back soon, I will kill 3 of you today. There was no panic. Everyone looked at her coldly. Feng Jilin was the master of the palace of true martial emperor. She was still a tough girl. She couldn't help but sneer, so this is the so-called god. I heard that there was a princess who chased after Long Chen shamelessly. She was rejected and abandoned, but she was still shameless. That's you. Biyao's face twitched when she was scolded. They were not afraid of death. Lu Yi said, you won't get him like this. You'll only make him hate you even more. Su Shue was even more unwilling to put Long Chen and her sister in danger. She had become the empress and was used to life and death. At this moment, she laughed softly and said, there is nothing to be proud of. Aren't you the same as us? Losing to Lingxi is not something shameful. Of course, it is not a big deal if you want to kill us. I believe he knows what he is doing. Don't try to force him out of the divine planet of destiny. When he is confident enough, you will die one day. Biyao wanted to see them cry and beg Long Chen to save her. She didn't expect them to be so tough. She was a god, and they were not afraid of her. This is ridiculous. I don't believe it. They were all women, so their words were sharp. Biyao was shaking with anger. When she was about to attack, the 3 women suddenly disappeared. When she realized it, they were already back in the crowd. Biyao was shocked. There weren't many people in the world who could snatch the prey from her hands without making a sound. Maybe only a few divine kings, even Long Chen might not be able to do it. Yet, such a thing had happened. Feng Jilin and the others were ready to die. Suddenly, they felt a strong and gentle power surrounded them. In a blink of an eye, they were back in the crowd. Who is it? Biyao shouted. That voice pierced through heaven and earth, forming a terrifying attack. Given its divine might, it should be able to directly kill these hundreds of people. However, when the voice reached the eyes of these hundreds of people, it was actually blocked. Biyao saw a barrier blocking in front of her. An expert was stopping her. Who are you? Biyao was furious. The hundreds of people were also extremely nervous. At this moment, they couldn't help but look ahead. There, a figure gradually turned from illusory to corporeal. Even though they hadn't seen Long Chen for a long time, when they saw him today, even if they only saw his back, they could still see him at first glance. Black hair, red and blue robe, broad shoulders, with an indomitable spirit. His appearance was like a heaven-supporting pillar, holding up the sky for everyone. Long Chen. It was hard to imagine. Wasn't he hiding in the divine planet of destiny? How did he suddenly appear here? Everyone covered their mouths and looked at Long Chen in shock. Some even had tears in their eyes. For example, the 3 women who had been saved. This had happened before, but it hadn't happened in a long time. They were saved by Long Chen again. This kind of throbbing in their hearts lasted for a long time. Diao couldn't believe it. Obviously, Long Chen had escaped the senses of the two divine kings and escaped from the divine planet of destiny. He couldn't be so fast, unless he was following her. Things were out of Diao's expectations. But the result was the same. Long Chen was forced to appear. He had indeed improved and changed. But Diao had been waiting for this moment for a long time. She was stunned at first, then she smiled and said, "You can finally appear like a man. I thought you were going to be a coward for the rest of your life. Do you know that once you appear, you won't be able to escape our inescapable net?" Long Chen's eyes were calm as he turned his head to look at the familiar faces and smiled warmly. When he turned his head again, his killing intent was ferocious as he said, "I've come here to make you gods pay the price. First, today's 4 chapters, looking for monthly votes. First place in clicks, sales, collections, etc. First place in the monthly votes. The most important thing about monthly votes is the unity of the fans. It's everyone's honor. Crazy is awesome, everyone is awesome. If you don't know how to vote, you can ask me in the book review section. Second, today, I will be posting something related to the game. If you want to read it, add Crazy's WeChat ID. Now, you can read books for free on WeChat. There are chat groups, lucky draws, beautiful girls, games, and everything else. There are also all kinds of preemptive messages. Please add Feng Qingyang. Third, today is the birthday of Sister T Fragrance in the Dragon Bar. Sister T has put in a lot of effort to manage the Dragon Bar. Crazy wishes Sister T a happy birthday, beauty forever. Chapter 27-23. Pay the price. Only you can say such childish words. While Diao was talking, she had already informed the 3 God Kings about the situation. The God King of Hell and the God King of Starry Sky were preparing to capture Long Chen. The God King of Light was in the eternal sacred realm. The 3 God Kings would need about the same amount of time to get here. When they heard this news, they were naturally greatly astonished. They had enough confidence in themselves. After all, they were dignified divine kings, but Long Chen had actually slipped away from under their noses. This was absolutely a great humiliation, and they couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. If Diao hadn't thought of such a method and happened to lure Long Chen out, wouldn't Long Chen be able to escape now? How would they explain it to the God King then? They didn't need to worry. If Long Chen wanted to escape, he would have done so long ago. He was here for revenge, for Origin Dragon Palace, not to escape. That wasn't like him. The 3 God Kings hurriedly rushed over. Previously, Diao had been held hostage by Long Chen. Although Diao had improved greatly this time, the 3 God Kings were still somewhat worried. It wasn't that they didn't trust Diao, but that Long Chen was full of tricks. Who knew what kind of schemes he would use? At that moment, time seemed to stop. The entire Draconic Right continent seemed to be shaking because of Long Chen's return. Diao didn't need to hide Long Chen's return anymore. She couldn't help but smile. Although it was annoying, it was also charming. But to Feng Jilin, this seemed to be similar to herself. She couldn't help but scold, "Bitch. What did you say?" Diao was furious. Long Chen waved his hand. He didn't need to look back. The hundreds of people behind him all entered his God Kingdom. He had to thank Diao. If he had to find them himself, it wouldn't have been easy. Now, he could protect them all in one go. Long Chen had no feelings for Diao. Perhaps during that period of time, he still felt a little guilty towards her, but now they were enemies. His opponent was the God King, and Diao was no longer a match for him. But the furious woman before him didn't think so. Her eyes gradually became bloodshot while her white hair fluttered in the wind. Her voice was sharp and overbearing as she said, 2 years ago, I suffered a crushing defeat at your hands. But today, I'll take back everything I lost to you. My father said that your talent is unrivaled, but I don't believe it. Today, I will determine the victor between us once again. Long Chen's eyes were cold. Now that he had appeared, he was ready to fight. Now that all the gods were rushing in his direction, he laughed coldly and said, "If that's the case, I'll use you as a sacrifice." Although she was beautiful, she had a venomous heart. If she did not return today, it would definitely be a lifetime of pain. Long Chen would never forget what she could bring to him today. "That's my gift to you." Biyao let out a shrill cry, no longer caring about her beautiful face. Her white hair fluttered in the wind. She had prepared for this battle for 2 years. Now, she finally couldn't be bothered anymore. She decisively made her move. The first move she made was the sad heaven slayer that she had prepared for 2 years. This was the law that she had comprehended the most from the law of oblivion. This was a law that was close to the level of a god king, so its might could be imagined. The sad heaven slayer was countless times stronger than the emotional wound that had restricted Long Chen. When Biyao spread her arms, the surrounding 10,000 miles were within her control. Her white hair fluttered in the wind as the transformed Great Emperor's yang essence swept through the heaven and earth. Vaguely, everything returned to a gray deathly stillness. A sad flute sound resounded between heaven and earth. This sound was filled with endless sorrow. The law of oblivion controlled emotions. The surrounding boundless area was all within Biyao's domain. The flute sounds, cries, and countless dark colors changed the entire world, causing the colorful sacrificial dragon continent to lose its original color, turning everything into a grayish-black color. Dense melancholy even materialized, wandering between heaven and earth like a long snake. "I'm going to make you lose your splendor and die with the heavens." This sigh from her mouth contained endless charm. This was the power of the law. The law of the sad heaven slayer affected will and suppressed Long Chen's will. By weakening his will, Long Chen would begin to weaken from the bottom of his heart. He would begin to lose his will to fight and all his thoughts. Under the law, as long as the law succeeded, Long Chen would be in Biyao's bag. It had to be said that this sad heaven slayer had already completely reached the level of a god king's law, which was the standard of the Taisha divine law. Under the sad heaven slayer, all things would die before their form died. Biyao had painstakingly cultivated this law for 2 years. It was unreasonable to think that she could definitely defeat Long Chen. After all, Long Chen still had the pain of Lingxi's death in his heart. At the very least, it would cause him to lose his desire to live and even seek death. It's not easy to survive. The sea of bitterness is boundless. Why don't you go with her as soon as possible? Don't let her suffer alone in hell. Biyao's voice was like the voice of the devil. It took on a physical form and surrounded Long Chen, trying in vain to penetrate his body and destroy him. But from start to finish, Long Chen quietly looked at Biyao, who was shrouded in gray. His eyes did not change in the slightest. On one hand, his will was terrifyingly strong. Biyao could not defeat him. On the other hand, Lingxi was not dead at all. Long Chen did not feel any pain in his heart. There was only hatred. When Biyao used all her strength to use the sad heaven slayer to kill Long Chen's heart, she suddenly felt that Long Chen should be in extreme pain. He smiled faintly and said to her, "This law of yours is nothing more than to make people feel pain, to make their hearts die, so that you can enslave them. But I can't be defeated by such senseless things. Love is not a method you can use to attack." Bullshit. Biyao panicked when she saw his smile. She was so confident in the sad heaven slayer, so how could Long Chen be unharmed? His eyes and his smile were so indifferent, as if her law had not worked at all. She had no idea that since Long Chen dared to come out of Planet Destiny, he was not on the same level as she was. "I'll show you what a law is." Just when Biyao was at her most incredulous state, her gaze was attracted by Long Chen's left eye. It was an illusory eye that contained all life within it. In the deepest part of it, there seemed to be a ball of white flame. When the light of the flame shone on her body, she felt absolutely weak. It was the same terrifying feeling in the labyrinth of destiny. From a god to a mortal. She was powerless, and her heart was dead. Not only was all her power suppressed, but her heart was also injured. She had been defeated in front of Long Chen again. The heavenly eye of destiny. Long Chen had only shown her a little bit, but she had already lost all her strength and was at his mercy. Long Chen also hated her. He hated her. If she was not the daughter of the God Emperor, if she had not given him the dragon-slaying saber, Long Chen would have killed her long ago. In the blink of an eye, Long Chen was in front of her. His eyes were so cold that Biyao was terrified. She couldn't help but ask for help from the God King of Hell. She thought she could hold on for a long time, but she was defeated in an instant. You brought my family and elders here and threatened them. I didn't want to get involved with you, but since you have done it, I will give you a slap on their behalf. Pa! Biyao's left cheek turned red. She had been slapped by Long Chen, and she almost cried. No one had ever dared to slap her in the face. Are you convinced? Long Chen lifted her collar, and his sharp eyes pierced into Biyao's heart. Only now did she realize how terrifying Long Chen had become after coming out of the divine planet of destiny. I am not convinced. You humiliated me. You will die a horrible death. Biyao's eyes were filled with tears. She had always been like this. When she realized that she was the princess of the God Emperor, she became extremely arrogant. But after being slapped by Long Chen, she immediately woke up and became a little girl, afraid and helpless. Pa! The second time. If you are not convinced, I will give you as many slaps as you bring here, until you are convinced. Long Chen wouldn't kill her. She was the daughter of the God Emperor, and if she angered the God Emperor to the extreme, he wouldn't care, but he had to protect so many people, so he couldn't act recklessly. Moreover, Biyao didn't really have any enmity with him, she was just unruly and willful. He wanted to kill the God King of Hell, so he had to kill him. As for Biyao, he couldn't do anything about it. Biyao's life was so precious, and he didn't have the right to kill her. Unless he wanted to run for his life again. But punishment was fine. The third time, the fourth time. Every time, he used all his strength and flung it on the woman's delicate face, even causing her to bleed. Biyao screamed and curled up in a corner, trembling. She had always been like this, and it was the same last time. Before, she was extremely arrogant, but when she was captured by Long Chen, she knew that she couldn't do it anymore. Are you convinced now? 10 slaps in a row, and Biyao couldn't even recognize her own mother. I'm convinced, I'm convinced. Don't hit me. The noble princess could only beg in front of Long Chen with tears on her face. Biyao. Long Chen lifted her up, looked into her eyes, and said, let me make things clear to you today. The conflict between the two of us stems from you using the emotionless sky mantra on me in the God City of Hell. That was an extremely wrong way of doing things, so I was angry, and I taught you a lesson. Today, you tried to attack my family, and your methods were despicable, so I was angry, and I taught you a lesson. But there is no other hatred between us. Our matters are just small squabbles, do you understand? In truth, if there was a choice, Long Chen naturally wouldn't offend her. Just as he had thought, if he could be on good terms with her, it would indeed be a good thing. What are you trying to say? Biyao was stunned. Seeing that the God King and the others were about to arrive, Long Chen said solemnly, remember, I don't want to kill you, but don't challenge my bottom line again and again. The only person I want to kill is the God King of Hell. After I kill him, I will leave your sight. We both have our rights and wrongs, and we don't owe each other anything. I don't want to be entangled with you, do you understand what I mean? Chapter 27-24. He wasn't a bloodthirsty demon. Especially now, there were too many people he had to protect, so he couldn't act recklessly. If he killed the godly king of hell, it would still be justifiable, and the divine Emperor Dijun probably wouldn't be too interested in him. But if he really killed Biyao, no matter where he escaped to, the divine emperor would chase after him personally. He had to have some sense of propriety. So he had to shock Biyao this time. Did you hear me? Long Chen suddenly shouted, causing Biyao to tremble all over. Her delicate face was now red from being slapped, and her whole body was weak. She could only nod hurriedly and say, okay, that's good. Remember, we don't hate each other. I just want to kill the godly king of hell. He didn't know that the person in front of him was the real culprit. If he knew, perhaps things wouldn't be like this now. The commotion caused by their battle had already affected the entire dragon sacrificial continent. Long Chen, put down the princess. You have one last chance. If anything happens to the princess, I'll make sure your entire clan dies without a burial place. This was the voice of the godly king of hell. From the northern starfield, on the divine planet of destiny, it spread to the eternal sacred realm and the dragon sacrificial continent. The dragon sacrificial great world that had been immersed in for 2 years finally exploded and boiled over. Long Chen has appeared. He came out of the divine planet of destiny. Heavens, he really didn't die. What is he doing now? That god really lied to us. How useless. He clearly couldn't deal with Long Chen, but he actually lied to us that he was dead. For a moment, the world was talking about it. In the age of gods, gods were everywhere and ruled the world. For a moment, trillions of living beings became lively. Even children were paying attention to the gods, especially to what kind of battle would break out between them and Long Chen. 2 years ago, Long Chen brought the 5 dragon cities and rushed into the divine planet of destiny. The 4 godly kings chased after him, but they were forced out by Long Chen. It was said that Long Chen was unharmed. The deity kings had guarded the divine planet of destiny for 2 years, swearing to kill Long Chen. Today, Long Chen had finally returned. When Long Chen heard the voice of the god king of hell and the cries of the other living beings, the 200 deities on the dragon sacrificial continent suddenly flared up. Although they knew they weren't a match for a monster like Long Chen, they had no choice but to charge forward and at least create a bit of momentum. A peerless king. Incomparably domineering. Hearing the words of the god king of hell, Long Chen was not afraid at all. Instead, he laughed. Thinking back to 2 years ago, the god king of hell could still easily control his life and make him flee like a rat. If Long Chen heard his threat, he would definitely flee without a trace. But now, he was full of heroic spirit. It was time to express his attitude. He once again seized control of Biyao, holding her with one hand as he turned into a sharp sword and charged towards the northern star region. God kings, don't come over. I've come out this time to fight the 3 of you. Just stay in the northern region and wait for me, Long Chen, to behead you in public. 2 years later, his voice returned once again. 2 years ago, he made the decision to fight with his back against the wall. He was chased into the heavenly palace of destiny by the 4 great god kings. It was extremely dangerous. That day, he was in a sorry state, all for the sake of returning today. The moment he returned, he was full of heroic spirit. His announcement of beheading in public spread throughout the world. To countless people who knew him, the peerless genius who had appeared out of nowhere and was undefeatable had returned. Many people didn't know what was going on with the deities. At first, they had endless respect, but the more time passed, the more they felt that something was wrong. How could such a deity be their ancestor? Most people were doubtful. Instead, they were more familiar with Long Chen. From the beginning, Long Chen had vaguely been at odds with them. He didn't act like a junior at all. They believed that Long Chen, who had once defeated the primeval troll, wasn't a fool. Therefore, they had been puzzled until today. If they had to stand on the same side, they would rather stand on Long Chen's side. Impudent. You've committed a grave sin by brutally killing 6 divine monarchs. Your crimes are so heinous that the God King has already sentenced you to death. Since you've come out today, there's really nowhere for you to run. If I were you, I'd choose to surrender. That way, I'll have an easier death. The God King of Hell's voice descended again. No matter how one listened to it, he was the more ruthless one. Long Chen smiled, "I'm not you. Just because you're a turtle, you think everyone else in the world is a turtle? Don't move, Grandpa will deal with you." Then, he took Biyao and headed north. That place was suitable for fighting. He believed that the God King of Hell and the others would be waiting for him there. Because he changed his position, hundreds of deities quickly changed direction and headed north. Everyone's gazes turned to the north as well, preparing for a battle that might change history. For a moment, everyone couldn't breathe. What's going on? Long Chen is so talented. How could he kill 6 divine monarchs out of nowhere? There's definitely something strange going on. That's right. From what he's done, he wouldn't do anything reckless. On the dragon sacrificial continent, deities flew past everywhere, rushing to the northern starfield in a flurry. It had been a long time since there was such chaos. Many deities were extremely nervous. In their eyes, that native who wasn't even worth a fart in the past was now a peerless nightmare. And now, he had even kidnapped Biyao. This was going to be difficult. In the process of heading to the northern starfield, Long Chen naturally knew that the battle he was looking forward to was about to begin. He arrived at his god nation. Those who had just entered had already gathered with the martial dragons. The dragon emperor was entertaining them. Actually, the reason why Long Chen didn't meet them was because he didn't want to disturb their lives. For example, how would Yang Xueqing and Yang Yu meet each other? For example, Lu Yi and the others. They should be able to forget him and live a good life. It was all Diao's fault. She affected their peace. But since the situation had reached this point, protecting them was also Long Chen's responsibility. Moreover, Lingxi hadn't seen her parents for many years. When he came in, Lingxi was meeting her parents. After experiencing death once, she knew better what she should cherish. No matter how strong she was, she couldn't help but cry at this moment. I'm about to become a grandfather? The Lingwu sword master trembled slightly, looking extremely incredulous. Perhaps in his eyes, Lingxi had always been a child. He didn't expect that his own child was about to give birth. Biyao town. His former family. Yang Lingqing was explaining things to them. When Yang Xueqing saw Yang Yu, who looked exactly like him, Long Chen didn't know what she was feeling, but Yang Yu would mediate it. And everyone else, now, he condensed his body in the god nation. Everyone was looking at him in unison. They were all familiar faces. Long Chen didn't know how to explain it to them. He thought for a moment and said, I didn't expect that I would affect everyone's lives. Next, I will have an important battle. It concerns life and death, and also the fate of this world. Everyone has such a good relationship with me, so I will always cause trouble for everyone. So from today onwards, everyone can only live in this new world. When everything is over, I will let everyone return to their hometowns. He thought for a moment. That was all he could say. Kitten inserted himself in the middle and laughed. Boss, I told you to have sex everywhere. I thought you could do it without anyone noticing. Now, gather all the women together and count how many there are. Haha. The atmosphere was originally solemn, but after Kitten's words, it eased up a lot. Long Chen looked over and found that no matter what, everyone was very respectful to him. No one blamed him at all. Even Su Shui and Lu Yi looked at him in a different way. Maybe they liked him in the past, but now it was more like a kind of faith. He was already a god in their hearts. No one would want to possess the god in their heart. This was a kind of deep love, and it was also the surging power in Long Chen's heart. All living things were equal. Even though he had become a god, he still felt that life was life, and there was no difference in essence. Go and fight. Yang Xueqing and Yang Yu stood together. Long Chen couldn't tell them apart at all. Yang Yu must have explained it to her by now. The smile on her face, to Long Chen, was like a knot in his heart for the first half of his life. At this moment it was completely untied. It wasn't just Yang Xueqing. Everyone treated him the same. Even if they were weak in terms of power, they were still very important to him. For example, his elder brothers and sisters of the dragon race, even though he had become a god, he still respected them immensely. They had once saved his life. For example, the Lingwu sword master. He still deeply respected him. Back then, he stole Lingxi from him. That was really not simple, but now, they deeply blessed him and believed in him. Go and fight. For survival, for protection, for justice. Finally, for Lingxi. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in the northern starry sky. He held Biyao in one hand and stood proudly in this endless starry sky. In front of him, 3 god kings led hundreds of gods to block his way. The gods gathered their might, wanting to turn Long Chen into an ant in front of them. But they didn't know that at this moment, he had come from the dragon sacrificial continent. Behind him were the trillions of living beings of the dragon sacrificial continent. In terms of numbers, Long Chen surpassed them countless times. The strong clashed. When Long Chen arrived, the weak gods couldn't help but retreat, frightened by Long Chen's disdainful gaze. Everyone's blood surged. Holding Biyao in front of him, Long Chen turned his face and smiled at the 3 god kings behind Biyao. Long time no see, the 3 of you. Today, I've come to take the God King of Hell's life. Among the 3 god kings, the God King of Hell was in the middle. Now, all the gods' faces were ashen. Let go of the princess. We can talk about other things. The God King of Hell naturally wouldn't be frightened. He waved his hand lightly. The might of a God King was indeed extraordinary. Don't worry. This time, I won't use her to threaten you. But I want her to swear on the spot. The 4th watch was over. Today was a small climax and build-up. Tomorrow was the final battle. The weather was cold and wet. Writing too much would make one's fingers numb. It was a little uncomfortable. Madman went to get some hot water. At night, he still had to write a few hours of detailed outline. Everyone was happy after reading and had some expectations. This was the greatest happiness of a book writer. Chapter 27-25. North of the dragon sacrificial continent, the gods had descended, and Long Chen was fighting them alone. Now, the scene was huge. Not only the dragon sacrificial continent, but almost all living beings in the eternal sacred realm were looking north. They knew that Long Chen was there. Last time, he was chased into the divine planet of destiny. This time, he had the courage of a bear hidden in his body. His heroic spirit reached the clouds, and he stood proudly in front of the gods. The 3 godly kings' faces were ashen, and they had long since wanted to kill him. With the 3 divine kings backing him up, the deities mocked and ridiculed him even more. Their faces were full of contempt as they waited to see Long Chen make a fool of himself. Who asked him to come out of planet destiny? Swear an oath? The gods were somewhat puzzled. But they didn't believe that Long Chen would let go of Biyao. Now, without the help of the white dragon from planet destiny, they had a total of 3 godly kings, and they still had some confidence in taking Biyao back from Long Chen. Swear what? Biyao asked in a choked voice as she sobbed. Perhaps she was smart, and she knew that the more pitiful she was, the more soft-hearted Long Chen would be. This was a crucial moment. Long Chen stared into her eyes and suddenly said loudly, "Today, in order to force me out of planet destiny, Biyao and the 3 godly kings didn't hesitate to drag out all my friends, companions, and relatives in the dragon sacrificial continent, intending to kill them. The dignified godly kings and divine emperor princess actually did such a despicable, shameless, and lowly thing. This is really an eye-opener. Fortunately, I came back in time, or else I would definitely regret it." Long Chen's voice was naturally for the people to hear. He had a purpose. It was all for the sake of letting the common people of Dragon's sacrificial continent take a good look at the true faces of these deities. Long Chen needed their greater support to participate in this battle. When these words were said, the people of Dragon's sacrificial continent were in an uproar. Countless people looked to the north. They already felt that the gods were a bit strange. Although they were their ancestors, they definitely didn't look like them. Now, they could even use such despicable means to attack ordinary living beings, chilling the hearts of the people and broadening their horizons. Therefore, they sympathized with Long Chen and supported Long Chen. The gods were even more furious. This way, they would completely lose the trust of the people. But Long Chen didn't stop. He continued, I was born on this dragon sacrificial continent, so I'm a part of this place. I don't know if the deities treat this place as their homeland and treat all living beings as their descendants. I am your enemy, but I absolutely do not wish for you to threaten the lives of all living beings because of me. I am my own person, and my life and death have nothing to do with them. Therefore, I want you, Biyao, to swear that from today onwards, you and your gods will not attack any living beings, and even more so, you will not kill the innocent because of threatening me. If you violate this oath, I will let all of you ancient gods perish. Sacrificial heaven. His voice was loud and clear, full of righteousness. Sacrificial Chen, sacrificial son. Emperor Chen of the sacrificial calamity king himself. King Emperor to the sacred to the world. Making the divine Emperor Princess swear in front of all living beings was a ruthless method. Although the world's sacrificial flame was ruthless, they cared about their face. Even if they might fall out with each other in the future, they would still restrain themselves a little. But with just a few sentences, the world's sacrificial flame had seen the true colors of the dragon sacrificial calamity king Emperor Princess. That was, regardless of whether the ancient deities were right or wrong, Long Chen was definitely right. He was born to protect all living beings. His fate was the fate of all living beings. It's time to let the princess go. Long Chen, if you're a man, let's have an open and honorable battle. The divine king of hell was as cold as ice. Back when he returned from the spirit essence star ocean, Long Chen was nothing. It was him who nurtured him. But today, his strength was heaven-defying. Against the deities, the first one he would fight was himself. Fine. No one could have imagined that Long Chen would be so direct. He had only said a single word, but he had already thrown Biyao, his greatest trump card, to the gods. He hadn't even frowned. An open and honorable battle? What if the three divine kings gang up on me? Seeing the radiant divine king bring Biyao into the divine kingdom to recuperate and the other deities begin to retreat, leaving only the three divine kings, Long Chen smiled relaxedly. Facing such a desperate situation, he actually didn't worry at all. In reality, because Long Chen had killed 7 ultimate divine monarchs, the gap between the deities was too great. Now, apart from the 3 divine kings, the other deities couldn't even withstand a single attack from Long Chen. These ancient deities were terrifying in the past, but to the current Long Chen, they could kill a whole bunch of them with a single blow. Because of the oath, the dragon's sacrifice was in an uproar. All beings were roaring and cheering for Long Chen, using their wishes to give Long Chen endless power. This was the best he had ever been in his life. Compared to the time when he received the support of all beings in the spirit essence star ocean and fought against the Era Sky Demon, he was countless times stronger. Long Chen, you don't need to sow discord between us and the deities. After we returned, we carefully trained you and gave you abundant resources, hoping that you would achieve glory. But you didn't change your murderous nature. You killed 7 ultimate divine monarchs of our race. According to the rules of our race, those who kill their own race must pay with their lives. You are a demon, and you don't know how to repent. Today, we are enforcing justice on behalf of the deity emperor. The deity king of hell had to regain some face for the deities. Long Chen smiled and said, then, you found all my family and friends and prepared to kill them to force me to leave destiny. Is that also enforcing justice on behalf of the deity emperor? The deity king of hell was speechless after hearing what Long Chen said. How dare you? We won't do that. Long Chen, summon your evil demon Hua. She devoured the ultimate divine monarchs of our race. Today, I will pierce through her stomach. The starry sky flood dragon roared angrily, the sound waves piercing through the heaven and earth. For a moment, the draconic continent was shaking. Words were useless. Long Chen had prepared for today's battle for a long time. His blood was boiling. Not only him, but the millions of dragon warriors in the deity nation were also cheering for him. Soi Yan came out. She was also prepared. Facing the starry sky divine king, she wasn't afraid at all. She said, "It was your own people who wanted to kill us. We are only retaliating. Don't make it sound so nice." The deity king of hell and the deity king of light exchanged a glance. Although they felt that they were far stronger than Long Chen, they couldn't act recklessly this time. So, they decided to work together and quickly subdue Long Chen. As for Demon Hua, the starry sky divine king would be enough to keep her occupied. The battle to the death was on the verge of breaking out. Just as the three deity kings were about to make their move, a black-haired, skinny young man suddenly appeared beside Long Chen. One of his eyes was black while the other was white. They were burning with two different colored flames. It was extremely strange. The three deity kings could tell at a glance that Mo Xiaolang seemed to be much stronger than before. Even though the terrifying flames and heat weren't displayed, they still caused the sky and earth to cave in. This young man bathed in flames seemed to be as terrifying as Demon Hua. Two monstrous young men. Looks like you're already prepared. Fine, I'll let you fight him. The radiant divine king's target was Mo Xiaolang. 3 against 3. The change in the situation made those who were worried about Long Chen look forward to it. It seemed that Long Chen was indeed prepared. This was their strongest team for battle. Mo Xiaolang had always been basking in Long Chen's light, which was why the gods had overlooked his talent. In just 2 short years, he'd improved even more than Long Chen. Of course, that was because he could devour flames very easily. Long Chen's eyes met with the deity king of hells. It was finally time for revenge. It had been a long time since he had faced someone directly like this. He suddenly laughed coldly and said, "God King of Hell, that day when I was cultivating in the Slaughter Dragon City, you were the one who suddenly barged in and secretly assassinated Lingxi, right?" He was saying this for the entire world to hear. Everyone in the Eternal God domain knew about this. Many people on the Dragon Sacrificial Continent also knew about it. However, they didn't know that the real murderer was actually the deity king of hell. The deity king of hell actually didn't care about such a question. Now that the god's reputation had been tarnished by Long Chen, this was probably the source of Long Chen's pain. He knew that Long Chen had come for revenge today, so he couldn't help but want to provoke him. He sneered. "That's right. I killed them. Not only your woman, but your daughter too. They all died in my hands." Everyone knew about this, and they were well aware of it. It caused a huge uproar on the Dragon Sacrificial Continent. At this time, another person appeared beside Long Chen in front of the God King of Hell. Chapter 27-26. From the moment Long Chen had appeared until now, the entire situation had been under his control. Even though he was surrounded by 3 God Kings, even though he no longer held Biyao hostage, he was still as calm as an ancient well. Even though he had 2 capable helpers, the God King of Hell couldn't let Long Chen keep his cool. Since everyone already knew, he might as well openly admit it. That way, even a god would lose his sense of propriety when faced with the enemy who killed his wife and daughter. The God King of Hell's acknowledgement naturally made everyone understand why Long Chen had betrayed them. This was especially true in the immortal divine realm. Aside from the divine cities that were tightly controlled by the gods, almost everyone understood that they had never truly treated Long Chen as one of their own. Perhaps there had to be a reason why Long Chen had seemingly killed the 6 divine monarchs for no reason at all. If Lingxi had died, the God King of Hell would have succeeded, and Long Chen would have been provoked by his nonchalant attitude. But when Lingxi had appeared beside Long Chen, and had even become a god, and had even reached the ultimate stage of the Taiji god realm, time seemed to have stopped on the god's side. Long Chen knew very well how long he had been suppressing his anger for this moment. Now, he could finally make Lingxi appear openly. He knew that the God King of Hell had clearly seen it, and that Biyao, who had been recovering in the Radiant God King's divine kingdom, had definitely seen it too. Lingxi wasn't dead. The God King of Hell had seen her lose all signs of life with his own eyes. Impossible. The God King's eyes were so wide that his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. He clenched his fists and couldn't help but tremble. Nothing is impossible. You really did almost succeed. I knew it was you back then, but I endured until today. Long Chen smiled. Yes, during this period of time, he had been constantly pushing his limits, and today, he had finally succeeded. The God King of Hell was right in front of him. Speaking of which, I still have to thank you. You brought me these changes, but the suffering you brought me is also unimaginable. He will make you pay with your life. Lingxi's gaze was calm. She gently tugged on Long Chen's arm. Needless to say, a look of infinite trust was enough to give Long Chen infinite strength. Lingxi is still alive. She wasn't killed. That's great, that's really great. Like I said, good people will be rewarded. She's so kind and helped us so much. Hearing these blessings, Lingxi felt that everything was worth it. The God King of Hell wanted to disturb Long Chen's mental state, but he didn't expect Long Chen to beat him instead. Now, his emotions were in turmoil. He was the one who couldn't calm down. His eyes were bloodshot. If he didn't kill Long Chen today, he would probably have nightmares for the rest of his life. Calm down. Don't talk too much with him. It's already terrifying that this kid can endure until now. We have to make him lose his current strength as soon as possible and seal him completely. Otherwise, there will be endless problems. The sooner we act, the better. I'll leave it to you. I'll deal with Demon Hua, the most troublesome one. Starry Sky God King said to the God King of Hell. The three of them analyzed the situation. Demon Hua was obviously the most terrifying while Mo Xiaolang and Long Chen were much weaker. Radiant Divine King said, Long Chen has many tricks up his sleeves. You may be a God King, but you still have to be careful. I'll help you after I deal with that wolf demon. After that, Radiant Divine King stared at Mo Xiaolang and walked to the left. Starry Sky God King hooked his finger at Soi Yan and said, Demon Hua, let's decide who lives and who dies. A demon like you doesn't deserve to exist in this world. You're the bad guy. You don't deserve it. Soi Yan was already trembling with anger because of Lingxi. This time, she also wanted to take revenge for Lingxi. Perhaps she was a little timid about fighting before, but she wouldn't be anymore. She only had anger in her heart now. Long Chen had already explained everything that needed to be explained. What he could do for his younger brother and sister was naturally to kill the God King of Hell as soon as possible, challenge the limits, and then help them. Now, every single action of these three young lives was proof that they were back for revenge. Their time had come. For a moment, everyone in the dragon sacrificial continent couldn't help but feel their blood boil for them. Challenging the gods, fighting against the God Kings, this was such a crazy thing. These three young people actually did it just like that. Resolute, decisive, and without a trace of hesitation. When Mo Xiaolang walked in one direction without saying a word, and when Soi Yan glared at Starry Sky God King angrily and suddenly transformed into a giant demon Hua in front of Long Chen, this battle of the God Kings finally erupted. This was a fated battle to the death. 3 against 3, all the God Kings were mobilized. Kings among the gods. People didn't know how powerful Divine Emperor Jun was, but now, the God Kings were the rulers of the gods. Long Chen was already challenging the rulers of the gods. 3 battlefields. Every battle was incomparably eye-catching, but what people paid the most attention to was actually Long Chen's battle of revenge. He was the leader and the pillar of all living beings. His victory or defeat was directly related to the fate of the three of them. This was also the battle that everyone was most worried about, because the last time Long Chen performed was on the divine planet of destiny. His strongest achievement was killing 6 ultimate realm god kings together with 8 white dragons. At that level of strength, there was still a big gap between him and a god king. A peerless battle that shocked the heavens and earth. This was hatred, revenge, and the final battle. When Long Chen and the god king of hell just made eye contact, the battle had already begun. It had to be said that Soi Eon was in her best state. She was as decisive and terrifying as when she swallowed Thunder God from the 9th heaven. She displayed the most fundamental characteristic of Demon Hua, which was cold-blooded and bloodthirsty. The primeval troll's body and the starry sky flood dragon's body were so huge that people in the faraway draconic continent could see them clearly. It was a giant monster with a snake head and a snake tail, but a torso, 4 limbs, and wings. The starry sky flood dragon's body was overflowing with colorful light as if it was made of stars. The body of the flood dragon was somewhat similar to that of the primeval troll. The 2 giant beasts stared at each other coldly and then started fighting. The battle was so intense that it instantly captured everyone's attention. In the eyes of the gods, Demon Hua was the strongest among the 3 of them. In fact, they only needed to restrain Demon Hua and let the other 2 god kings finish off their opponents quickly. Then, they would win. Therefore, the pressure on the god king of the starry sky flood dragon was slightly greater. Brat, you only have the body of Demon Hua, but you're worlds apart from the real Demon Hua. If you're obedient, maybe we can spare your life. Why do you have to court death with Long Chen? The starry sky flood dragon took advantage of its seniority and fought with Demon Hua at close range. It could clearly feel the immense power of Demon Hua. She was a final god king. You're a bunch of bastards. You're no different from the primordial giant devils. You're the evil ones. My big brother Long Chen didn't offend you, but you attacked him. It's all because of your greed. No matter what the consequences are, you deserve it. Demon Hua was as swift as lightning. In terms of physical strength, although the body of the starry sky flood dragon was made of countless stars and was countless times tougher than the draconic continent, it still couldn't stop Demon Hua's claws. Especially her slender tail, which was comparable to a creation-grade creation divine artifact. When the starry sky flood dragon spoke, it was struck on the spot. It let out a miserable shriek and lost all its dignity. Only then did it understand that even if the mission was to delay Demon Hua, it wasn't that easy. She's not familiar with the rules. I can use the rules to deal with her. The starry sky flood dragon instructed. The thought of killing Demon Hua appeared in its mind. It was the godly king rules that it was most proud of. It didn't believe that it couldn't deal with Demon Hua with its tens of millions of years of cultivation. The huge flood dragon's body rotated in the northern starry sky. In the eyes of everyone, this starry sky flood dragon was like a bright galaxy. No wonder it was called the starry sky flood dragon. Star river traversing. The starry sky flood dragon rushed to a higher starry sky and looked down at Demon Hua. Suddenly, an idea struck him and he couldn't help but laugh. Right, I can use this move to deal with this brat. She has never left the draconic continent. Even if she did, she would only go to the spirit essence star ocean. If I lure her somewhere else, she won't even be able to return. This rule couldn't injure the opponent. But if one was hit, they would be teleported to a place hundreds of millions of miles away. Although it wasn't as good as Long Chen's Death Realm Dragon Gate that could directly send them to the Death Realm, it would still take hundreds of years for Soi Eon to return. Everyone, watch my show. The starry sky divine king swooped down. When he displayed this stance, the deities vaguely guessed what it was. They had forgotten that the starry sky divine king had such a mystical rule. It turned into a boundless world of light, trapping Imo Shaolang within. This was a completely different world. It was the power of laws. In the sky, countless rays of light converged and formed a huge pale tombstone. This tombstone seemed to be as big as the entire eternal sacred realm. It was incomparably thick. It was hard to imagine how terrifying its power was. And now, this tombstone was pressing down on Emo Xiaolang at lightning speed. May the evil of the world be suppressed under the radiant tomb forever. May nothing be reincarnated. May it be destroyed for all eternity. When the radiant tombstone descended, it was accompanied by the ravings of the radiant God King. The ravings bewitched people's souls and confused their minds. They couldn't help but prostrate themselves. Although it didn't make Emo Xiaolang kneel, it was enough to confuse the minds of most people on the dragon sacrificial continent. They couldn't help but kneel on the ground. This was the power of a God King. Under the radiant tombstone, Emo Xiaolang was ridiculously insignificant. The radiant God King had used this tombstone to create a tomb for Emo Xiaolang to be suppressed for all eternity. Vicious indeed. Emo Xiaolang was the one that Long Chen was more worried about. However, even when the radiant tombstone descended, Emo Xiaolang's expression did not change. He was very calm. However, in his hands, a black flame appeared in his left hand and a white flame appeared in his right. The black was icy cold, and the white was scorching hot. The insignificant flames, one cold and one hot. However, it was these two flames that split the boundless space around them, including the dragon sacrificial continent, into two. One was bone-chilling cold, while the other was scorching hot like a sea of fire. Cold and hot did not mix. The two ancestral flames were so close that they affected the world. Although the appearance of the ancestral flames was just a seed, it still shocked the radiant God King. He could feel the power of the ancestral flames. The coldness of the black flame and the violence of the white flame. If they were to merge, it would definitely cause a terrifying explosion. As expected, the moment the radiant tombstone descended, Emo Xiaolang was very calm. His expression was calm as he collided the two flames together. In a short moment, the entire world trembled. Then, he rushed into the sky and pressed the fused flames onto the radiant tombstone. Explosion. The destructive light completely destroyed the world of light. Even under the suppression of the eternal opal, the space between the dragon sacrificial continent and the divine planet of destiny completely collapsed. All the light was swallowed by the destructive light. Although Emo Xiaolang was not a God King, the counterattack this time could only be used by a God King level God King. This was the power of the ancestral flames. He had succeeded. The explosion of the fusion of the two ancestral flames shattered the radiant God King's laws. The radiant God King, who looked down on Emo Xiaolang, was in a more difficult situation than the starry God King because he was injured. When a god was chased off the altar, the radiant God King would be in this state. Even though his injuries were not serious, the loss of dignity was irreparable. The huge impact of this explosion made people recall the past. Some of the gods who were watching were even injured. They could not help but remember one name, Emo Xiaolang. Similarly, Biyao, who was in the divine kingdom of the radiant God King, was also stunned. If she had to face Emo Xiaolang's attack, she would definitely die. She did not expect that the young man who never showed his face beside Long Chen was so powerful. How could she call herself a genius in front of him? The daughter of two God Kings? She had to admit that she saw two monsters on the dragon sacrificial continent. And this did not include Demon Wa's situation. After all, Demon Wa's power did not belong to Soyeon. She could not be considered a lucky person. Emo Xiaolang, who was thought to be the easiest to deal with, had at least frightened the radiant God King. It was doubtlessly impossible for the radiant God King to take him down in a short period of time. At this moment, Biyao and the others finally saw Long Chen's plan clearly. It turned out that the three of them were able to fight against the radiant God King, which was why he dared to come out, then, as the core of the team and the only one who could enter the heavenly palace of destiny. What kind of transformation had he gone through? As the radiant God King and the starry God King fought on the battlefield, Long Chen and the God King of Hell had already begun fighting. The process was not as earth-shaking, but it was still thrilling. From many details, it could be seen that Long Chen had undergone a transformation. In fact, Long Chen was more worried about Mo Xiaolang and Sui Yan. He was worried that they would not be able to stop their opponents. After all, Mo Xiaolang's power and laws were lacking, while Sui Yan had no battle experience. But when the two of them fought, he realized that he had been worrying too much. It's time to return everything back to this guy. He understood that Mo Xiaolang and Sui Yan were working so hard to create an opportunity for him to fight against the God King of Hell, to give him a chance to take revenge. The explosion of the ancestral fire made Long Chen's anger and hatred rise to the extreme. Every time this happened, he would be the coldest. It's the end of the month, please get a monthly vote. The first 3 monthly votes are valid forever. Chapter 27-28. The God King of Hell cultivated the Ksiddhagarbha Fiend Hell Sutra, a creation-level boundless divine technique that forged the creation-level power, the heavenly demon Yuan. The nature of the heavenly demon Yuan was eerie and sinister, an extreme Yin power that belonged to the lineage of death. In comparison, while Long Chen's primordial dragon heavenly tribulation source power was of the same level, it was more violent and majestic. Now that the two powerhouses were facing off, the God King of Hell was obviously more powerful, but Long Chen was supported by the will of all living beings and was even stronger. Now that he no longer had to worry about the safety of Mo Xiaolang and Sui Yan, he could focus all his attention on the God King of Hell. Going against the gods was not your initial choice, but since you can't tolerate it, it will be the biggest mistake of your life. Long Chen, you're like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Not to mention that you won't succeed today, even if you can escape today. Can you escape the control of the God King of Hell and the other God Kings in the future? Right, you've also killed the demons. The God King of Hell will teach you a lesson. As the God King of Hell spoke, he had already made his move. His black robe fluttered in the starry sky, the boundless heavenly demon Yuan surging between heaven and earth. The laws of hell had unknowingly descended. That was power, and everything. Trying to fight against the ancient gods with the power of an ant, laughable, laughable. The God King of Hell's laughter echoed between heaven and earth. Didn't the primordial demons think the same way? No one is destined to be an ant. The way I see it, the loser is an ant. But we are different from the primeval troll that has been sealed for millions of years. The God King of Hell smiled slyly. Demon God Transformation. Facing Long Chen, the God King of Hell used the first God King law, initiating the battle. Between heaven and earth, there seemed to be countless ghostly powers pouring into the godly body of the godly King of Hell. In front of Long Chen, the godly body kept changing and expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, the godly body of the godly King of Hell had changed into another appearance in front of Long Chen. This was a hunched humanoid holy sorcerer with a body as large as that of a demonic beast. His entire body was covered in green scales, and he had a green face and fangs. There was a sharp black horn on his forehead, and the most terrifying thing about him was that he had a total of 8 arms by his ribs. 8 sharp demonic claws. This was brought about by the godly King of Hell's godly transformation. Long Chen focused his attention. Seeing the God King of Hell like this, he didn't say anything. Even if he was a god, it was normal for him to cultivate such evil methods. There was naturally a reason why he was called the God King of Hell. Because he could bring hell to people. After the god and ghost transformation, the baleful aura of the God King of Hell broke through heaven and earth, causing all living beings on the dragon sacrificial continent to tremble in fear of this devil god. Its influence was huge, and they couldn't help but worry for Long Chen. 100 Ghost Slaughter. After the god and ghost transformation, the godly King of Hell, who was anxious to get rid of Long Chen once and for all, directly used a new power of the law. Now, those 8 arms moved, and each of them was filled with astonishing and terrifying power of the law of hell. Long Chen's movements were extremely fast. When the other party used the god and ghost transformation, he had already transformed into the divine Tao heart refining dragon. He was black and yellow in color, upright and aboveboard, the guardian of order. The godly king of hell had a horn, and Longchen had a sword of judgment. Claws like blades, tail like spears. The descent of the divine dragon, with its majesty and righteous power, dispelled the ghostly aura, calmed the hearts of all living beings, and provided infinite power for Longchen. This was vaguely the first confrontation. 100 Ghost Slaughter, activate. The 8-armed ghostly claws of the God King of Hell pierced through space. Each huge ghostly claw was actually covered with corpses. They were densely packed and attached to these ghostly claws. The sinister faces on these ghostly claws were enough to strike fear into the hearts of opponents. Whoosh whoosh. Those ghostly claws actually pierced through space, slashing toward Longchen's divine Dao heart-refining dragon. It was difficult to evade, and it wasn't just one arm either. There were several ghostly claws that pierced through space, coming at Longchen from an unavoidable angle. If he couldn't block them, he would be easily torn apart by the ghostly claws. Paltry tricks. Just as everyone was worried, Longchen didn't bat an eyelid. He watched as the ghostly claws descended from countless places, bringing hell with them. He coiled his dragon body. The divine Dao heart-refining dragon was a force of justice, and was in fact the bane of such evil forces, especially at this moment. This was also the reason why Longchen had chosen the divine Dao heart-refining dragon. Karma King Sword. With a single strike, the Karma King realm controlled the starry sky. The starry sky instantly turned into a boundless world of karma. The ghostly claws that could traverse the starry sky at will became an eyesore upon entering the Karma King realm. But Longchen ignored them, and the shining sword of judgment between his brows shone with boundless light. The killing power of karma had reached the pinnacle. He slashed down with his sword. Lunatic. The godly monarch of hell couldn't help but exclaim. Longchen had chosen to ignore the ghostly claws and attack him directly. This would only result in a lose-lose situation, and no one would benefit. But it had to be said that Longchen's Karma King sword was truly terrifying. The light it emitted was indeed the bane of the godly monarch of hell's demon god transformation. If I retreat, I'll fall for his trap. Since he wants a lose-lose situation, then I'll accompany him to the end. The godly monarch of hell's eyes flashed coldly. While doing his best to protect himself, he sneered. The 100 Ghost Slayers' rules pierced directly into the body of Longchen's divine Dao heart-refining dragon. The countless corpses on the ghostly claws instantly crawled onto Longchen's body. They opened their sharp claws and stabbed at the golden and black dragon scales. It was extremely brutal, and they wanted to rush into Longchen's dragon body. The 8-armed ghostly claws directly tore open multiple bloody holes on the body of Longchen's divine Dao heart-refining dragon. The godly monarch of hell's killing power was second only to the godly monarch of ink desolation among the 4 great godly monarchs. He wasn't someone to be trifled with. The 100 Ghost Slayers' rules had allowed him to slay countless opponents. Of course, at this time, the Karma King's sword that Longchen had risked his life to kill still reached the godly monarch of hell. With a single slash, it directly severed 4 of the godly monarch of hell's arms. Crack. The Karma King's sword chi even rushed into the godly monarch of hell's body and wantonly destroyed it. But the godly monarch of hell still laughed loudly. You're destined to be tortured for eternity by letting my 100 ghosts enter your body. Longchen, the price you paid in order to injure me is too high. Just 4 arms, he could just grow them out again. But Longchen had been struck by the 100 Ghost Slayer, and had 100 ghosts enter his body. That was different. Is that so? The Karma King's sword vanished, and Longchen and the godly monarch of hell appeared once again. Longchen's body was riddled with wounds, and everyone could not help but feel even more worried. As for the gods, they finally broke out into laughter. Indeed, Longchen wasn't that scary. He was far from the commotion caused by Mo Xiaolang and Soi Yan. He's just a paper tiger. He only knows how to scare people. That's right. He was standing in the middle, acting like a boss. I really thought he was going to engage in an epic battle of revenge. Everyone could not help but burst into laughter. But very quickly, their laughter and the ugly smile on the godly monarch of hell's face disappeared without a trace. Because Long Chen's body was burning with green flames of life. The majestic flames of life burned the ghosts that were attached to his body to death. As for the injuries on Long Chen's body, they were not a hindrance. In the blink of an eye, they were completely healed. He did not suffer any injuries at all. A mere 100 ghost slayer was no match for his numerous mystic art laws. How is this possible? This is the power of life. Be it order or life, they both restrained the godly monarch of hell to a certain extent. Now that he had lost 4 of his arms, even if he could regrow them, it would consume a great deal of energy. But no matter how Long Chen looked at it, his energy seemed endless. His expression was still cold and calm. The godly monarch of hell had defeated countless opponents, and he had to admit that this Long Chen before him was definitely one of the most terrifying. When he saw that Imo Xiaolang and Sui Yan were also in a stalemate with their opponents, he began to understand that today's battle was definitely going to be a close one, and not a one-sided one. Damn it. If the Black Qilin had returned earlier, things wouldn't have been so awkward. No matter what, I still need to send Long Chen to the next world as soon as possible before helping the 2 of them. The godly monarch of hell gritted his teeth. He dispelled the ghost god transformation and returned to his divine body. Now that his arms were back, his fighting spirit was even stronger than before. Perhaps it had been easy at the start, but after his arms were severed by Long Chen, he really wanted to fight to the death. Such an enemy couldn't be underestimated. This was the godly monarch of hell's experience. Long Chen also returned to his human form. His actions made it clear to the godly monarch of hell that he wanted an absolutely fair duel, a direct victory over himself. That was his revenge. Long Chen's enemy wasn't the godly monarch of hell, but rather the godly monarch of hell who had witnessed Lingxi's death a few years ago. What he wanted to surpass wasn't the godly monarch of hell, but himself. Therefore, whatever the godly monarch of hell did, he would do. Very confident. Not bad, but you're underestimating me too much. The godly monarch of hell was shrouded in black mist, the fearsome demonic essence of the heavenly Tao. Every drop of black mist contained the howls of countless ghosts and gods. Make your move. You don't have many chances left. Long Chen's deep voice resounded through the heavens and earth. Facing the godly monarch of hell, he was much more at ease than he had imagined. Just as the godly monarch of hell had thought, the godly monarch of hell's true opponent was himself. This voice that was filled with conviction was a huge mental pressure on the godly monarch of hell. Young man, you really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. If I can't suppress you, how can I become the godly monarch of hell? The godly monarch of hell sneered. No matter how dazzling Long Chen's performance was, the truth was that he wasn't really worried. After so many years, it was impossible for him to not have some true trump cards. In fact, he even had some scariest rules that he had never used before. For example, lost souls purgatory. Homeless souls and wild ghosts, follow me on the path to immortality. Experience the trials of purgatory, and walk towards immortality. This is the world that belongs to me, the godly monarch of hell. The monthly votes seem to have shot up a few places, almost reaching 3rd place. Let's work hard together. Updated at 18 p.m. sharp. He naturally wanted to use the soul death purgatory to suppress Long Chen's heavenly eye of destiny. Or to suppress the effects of the heavenly eye of destiny to the lowest. But the laws of destiny were like time and karma. They were all things that ordinary gods and demons couldn't understand. The divine king of hell had underestimated the power of billions of people's rage. That maze. The divine king of hell was shocked to discover that this was actually the suppression of the maze. Under the suppression of destiny, his identity and destiny were still changed. His full strength was still present, but he could only use a very small portion. This caused the soul death purgatory to shrink countless times. Even Long Chen couldn't control it. Crisis averted. The divine king of hell's body underwent a huge change. He was no longer a god, but a mortal. Instead, all the experts around him were gods. He fell into a vortex of mental and physical inferiority. As long as he couldn't leave Long Chen's left eye, he couldn't leave the control of the heavenly eye of destiny. The soul death purgatory collapsed under the heavenly eye of destiny. If it could be said that Long Chen had relied on ruthlessness and the fire of life to suppress him last time, then this time, he had relied on the rules. It was a complete victory based on the rules. After all, in terms of strength, the God King of Hell was stronger. Reversal. When the light descended again, the tall divine King of Hell became incomparably small. On the draconic sacrificial continent, everyone couldn't bear it anymore and directly cheered. Meanwhile, the surrounding gods were originally beaming with joy and flattering the divine King of Hell. However, Long Chen's strangely tyrannical strength gave them another slap in the face. At this moment, they were looking at this young man in a daze. He was just as cold and silent as before, but that gaze was so terrifying. This was the gaze of a true god. In front of this gaze, the divine King of Hell indeed became insignificant. This caused the hearts of the gods to tremble. They recalled that Long Chen was so smart, so he definitely wasn't an idiot. In that case, he really did come for revenge today. Perhaps, he really had a chance of succeeding. Although everyone had infinite confidence in the three godly kings and knew that the three godly kings would eventually emerge victorious, at least for now, they felt that the three godly kings would need to expend a great deal of effort to defeat these three heaven-defying young experts. 3 monsters. Looks like the divine kings will have to expend a lot of effort to deal with them. The gods still stood at a very high place and looked at Long Chen and the others with a high attitude. This was their own nobility. In reality, in Long Chen's eyes, it was worthless. Although the lost soul purgatory was not bad, it had already been broken by the destiny heavenly pupil. After using the laws of fate to change the divine King of Hell, Long Chen didn't say anything else. With the peerless dragon Salyer in his hand, he moved as fast as lightning, traversed tens of thousands of miles in an instant, crossing countless distances in an instant, and slashed down. Time rupture. From the start of the battle until now, Long Chen had always been using the strongest power of the rules. After the destiny heavenly pupil, time rupture was naturally no exception. When this blade slashed down, the divine King of Hell desperately dodged and resisted. Even though he was intimidated by the destiny heavenly pupil, he still used several divine king laws, but they were all broken by time rupture. Others might not be clear, but the divine King of Hell was deeply aware that from the start of the battle until now, he had been suppressed by Long Chen. The lost soul purgatory that he was most proud of was still broken by Long Chen. His heart was already filled with boundless shock and even fear. And when the laws of time rupture struck him, causing him to be unable to use his own power and still flowing away, the divine King of Hell knew that if he didn't fight with his life on the line, he might really lose his life. Perish. Perishing in this godforsaken dragon sacrificial continent was such a laughable matter. A dignified divine king would probably become the laughingstock of the entire world. But he had to admit that Long Chen was very terrifying. He really did it. From the start of the battle until now, he was even stronger than Mo Xiaolang and Demon Hua. Mo Xiaolang could only rely on the ancestral fire, and Demon Hua was most familiar with the black hole laws. Only Long Chen was unfathomable. No wonder he dared to fight with me today. He was already fully prepared. No wonder the God Emperor repeatedly told me to control him as much as possible. Otherwise, I won't have another chance in the future. This future might be referring to now. No matter how unwilling and unconvinced he was, the divine King of Hell couldn't deny that this young god was about to kill him. He didn't even die as a divine lord, so he must have obtained the greatest luck of this dying world. He carried the hope of this world's revival and had the faith of trillions of people. He was a terrifying enemy. When he felt that his opponent was sufficiently terrifying, it was actually easier to deal with him. The divine king of hell had also returned to his youth. He fought with his life on the line just like Long Chen. Whenever he met an opponent, he would fight to the death. He didn't care about his life at all and only cared about tearing his opponent apart. After the time rupture, the important divine king of hell chose to erupt before Long Chen approached him again. A cornered dog will jump over a wall and fight to the death? Long Chen laughed coldly. The coldness of his voice made all the gods tremble, but it also made all living beings excited. Die! After the divine king of hell roared, his body almost exploded. Chapter 27:30. Roar. The behemoth of past life roared. The sound was like a whirlpool. Those who heard it felt as if their lives were being drained away rapidly. The behemoth of past life couldn't be seen clearly in the gray mist. In other words, it didn't have a face at all. It was just a rule that devoured life. Devouring life to create rebirth. The God King doesn't want to kill you for now. He wants to learn your secrets, but I can't complete the mission he gave me. I can only kill you. Long Chen, you can only blame your bad luck. The God King of Hell's voice echoed in his ears. He was mad. A mighty God King, a senior who had lived for tens of millions of years, was forced to this extent by a junior. Rumble. As the gods and even the other two godly monarchs watched in shock, the past life behemoth appeared in front of Long Chen. It wanted to devour Long Chen and build a path to the afterlife for itself. He wasn't willing to use this rule in the past. That's right. Once you use it, you can't use it again for at least 10 years. The behemoth of past life consumes too much. But you can't deny that you and I can't escape this rule. This was the conversation between the Radiant God King and the Starry God King. Before this, they couldn't be separated from their opponents, but it was difficult for them to truly overwhelm their opponents. They didn't expect that the ones who would truly influence the outcome of the battle were Long Chen and the God King of Hell. Of course, they were relieved to see that the God King of Hell was willing to use the behemoth of past life. Not many people could withstand the behemoth of past life's devouring. The endless gray mist enveloped Long Chen. Seeing Long Chen drown, the crowd was extremely nervous. They all knew how terrifying the gray beast was. They also knew that if Long Chen couldn't withstand this rule, it would be useless even if he suppressed the God King of Hell. Time seemed to freeze at this moment. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the result. They were powerless to affect the outcome. There was one more person who was struggling internally. Naturally, it was Biyao. Although she was on the Radiant God King's side, she was constantly watching the battle. She knew from the beginning that Long Chen would be more terrifying than Mo Xiaolang and Sui Yan, because he had always been the leader. Will I die? She had heard of the God King of Hell's rebirth beast. He had once used this move to devour a foreign race's God King, causing his name to shake the myriad of worlds. In the dragon ritual, none of the primordial realm godly monarchs dared to fight the past life behemoth. Everyone was worried. However, only Long Chen himself laughed. Today, the godly king of hell had finally decided to go head-to-head with him. From the soul-lost purgatory to this even more terrifying rebirth behemoth, all of them were challenging his limits. It seemed like it was finally time for him to go all out. Countless scenes flashed before his eyes the moment he transformed into the ancient blood spirit dragon. In the end, it stopped at the scene where Lingxi fell to the ground and he was powerless to do anything. He watched as the God King of Hell left. At that moment, he deeply felt how weak and powerless he was. It's time to end this. As the rebirth behemoth approached, even with the flame of his life force was fading away. The natural laws of the infernal realm were actually the natural laws of death. In fact, they were similar to the natural laws of the primordial blood spirit dragon. Everyone finally saw the blood-colored divine dragon vaguely flashing within the reborn behemoth. He turned into a dragon. That's right. Was this hope, or was it a desperate gamble? Roar. The desperate godly king of hell would not give Long Chen any chance. A gigantic mouth appeared in the gray fog. It was even larger than Long Chen's divine dragon body. The godly king of hell could not help but heave a sigh of relief. It was such a close call. When it was finally over, he could not help but want to laugh out loud. It had been a long time since he felt so refreshed. Although he was forced to the point of risking his life, at least he won in the end and completed his mission. However, he was still a little afraid. He did not even understand why Long Chen would make such a suicidal move at the end. Perhaps he was too confident. The godly king of hell laughed coldly as he thought. Did it work? At this moment, the godly king of hell heard such a voice. Right now, he was still in the state of the rebirth behemoth. He had indeed devoured Long Chen, but Long Chen was still stuck in the behemoth's mouth. The godly king of hell's dragon claws pierced deep into the body of the rebirth behemoth. You're not dead. The rebirth behemoth was about to devour again. I say, who's going to devour who? Blood Devour. The reason why he came to this place was to activate Blood Devour. This was blood refinement to Qi. Back then, Long Chen refined by Zhanxiong at the Bai clan in Baiyang town. Blood refinement to Qi gave Long Chen a new life. That was the beginning of all his success. Now that he was fighting this peerless godly king, he changed the transformed blood refinement to Qi into Blood Devour. Blood Devour was a kind of rule, a rule that devoured bloodlines. Whether it was the godly king of hell or the rebirth behemoth, no matter what bloodline they had, he would devour them one by one. At this moment, the victory of the rule was the victory of devouring. The rebirth behemoth was a terrifying rule. Unfortunately, it had encountered the ancestral fire. This was the mystique that Long Chen was most familiar with. He had practiced it countless times and comprehended it countless times. Now that he used it, it was very smooth. His Blood Devour rule power controlled the rebirth behemoth. Even though the rebirth behemoth was much larger than him, at this moment, it was prey in his mouth. They were devouring at the same time. But in the beginning, the godly king of hell crumbled. The rebirth behemoth crumbled and collapsed, turning into the godly king of hell in the hands of the mystical dragon. As for Long Chen, he took human form, except that he was covered in red dragon scales. His fingers pierced into the god king of hell's body, gripping his blood vessels. The two of them stood facing each other. Long Chen had a cold smile on his face, but the god king of hell's face was filled with pain, fear, despair, and earth-shaking screams. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time, Long Chen said indifferently. In response to him was the godly king of hell's screams, his struggles, and his gradually withering body. Previously, when the rebirth behemoth had devoured Long Chen, everyone had despaired and even fallen to the ground. And the gods were cheering in high spirits. In less than 3 breaths of time, the tables had turned. Long Chen was unscathed, while the godly king of hell was in an extremely tragic state. Looking at the godly king of hell's current situation, one could tell that he would not be able to hold out much longer under the terrifying rules of Long Chen. It was very likely that the godly king of hell would perish. Those who had fallen to the ground stood up in a daze, staring in disbelief at the surprise that Long Chen had given them. And none of the gods could react in time. Mo Xiaolang, Sui Yan, and Long Chen were connected telepathically. They had absolute trust in Long Chen. Back then, Long Chen had not died under the pursuit of the 4 great godly kings, so it was even more impossible for him to survive now. There were even more people who were more pitiful than him. He was pitiful because of his own loftiness and Long Chen's lowliness. It was precisely because he had been defeated by Long Chen, who he looked down on, that he was in so much pain. This was all his own doing. If he had looked up to Long Chen, he wouldn't have ended up like this. I want to tell you a secret. Before his death, the godly king of hell had a final burst of consciousness. Speak. The godly king of hell suddenly laughed. He struggled a few times, closed his eyes, and slowly said, "The person who asked me to kill Lingxi is..." "Who?" Long Chen's gaze turned cold again. So it turned out that his revenge had not been fully avenged. Biyao. With these two words, the godly king of hell fell. Chapter 27:31. This was practically the most unbelievable moment in history. On the dragon sacrificial continent, although the masses couldn't clearly see the contest between the gods, they could vaguely guess through the sounds, especially the agonized howls of the godly king of hell at the end. It was hard to imagine that a mighty godly king would actually make such a sound. All the returning gods, including the humans, demons, oceanic clans, and witches, surrounded the area. They personally witnessed the godly king of hell's body wither, die of old age, and turn into ashes in Long Chen's hands. Until the once all-powerful godly king of hell completely disappeared from this world. Long Chen had two methods to kill a god. One was the Death Realm Dragon Gate, but in reality, the Death Realm Dragon Gate might not be considered truly dead. The other method was this blood devour. A god's life force was endless, and it wasn't easy to completely kill them. For example, when Long Chen killed the 7 ultimate divine monarchs, he gave them to Demon Wa to devour. And now, his blood devour also had the ability to slaughter. Not just slaughter. Long Chen devoured everything he had and was currently in a frenzy, refining the godly king of hell's power. Of course, he was refining the parts that were useful to him. Most of the parts that weren't suitable for him still dissipated. Of course, Long Chen couldn't devour the nomological laws like Mo Shaolang. But even so, devouring bloodlines to increase one's power was terrifying to all gods. Demon Wa could devour, but there was a limit to it. Once she recovered to the ultimate godly king realm, her devouring would no longer increase her power. And Mo Xiaolang's devouring was only effective on fire or gods that cultivated the nomological laws of fire. However, Long Chen was the only one who had recovered his blood refinement chi and climbed back to the peak. His original strength was not much different from that of the God King of Hell. After all, he was the one with the strongest godly power in the history of the Tai Chi divine realm. The bloodline and power of the God King had the attribute of heavenly Tao ghost, God, and devil essence. The most heaven-defying ability of the blood devourer was to purify everything it devoured into the most primitive divine spirit source energy, and then add it into Long Chen's godly power. The primordial divine dragon heavenly tribulation secret tome transformed it into Long Chen's own power. There were many trade-offs in this process, but in the end, the divine power he obtained was very compatible with Long Chen. It was as though he had obtained it for free, and it was even faster than the wish force of all living beings. Although a large portion of the devoured divine power was lost, at least the God King of Hell allowed Long Chen to improve, and he was even close to the divine Lord realm. Biyao. The moment the godly king of hell was annihilated in his hand, Long Chen finally understood. He hadn't thought about this before, but now that the godly king of hell said so, everything fell into place. After Lingxi's accident, Biyao immediately appeared and got close to him. Even the dream spirit's realm might have been a trap arranged by her, and the heaven indifference mantra. Clearly, her goal was to obtain him, and killing Lingxi was naturally her first step. So it was you. Although he didn't know why she wanted this so badly, it was no longer important to Long Chen. After killing the godly king of hell, Long Chen wanted to kill Biyao again. He couldn't bear the fact that he had spent so much time with this woman after Lingxi's accident. So it really was her. In Scandinavia, Lingxi had expected this. In fact, when her opponent in the Sky Supreme Sword Ocean turned out to be Biyao, she had more or less guessed it. Among the gods, the only one who could command the godly king of hell was Biyao. Lingxi's intuition told her that it was very likely Biyao who did it, but she didn't have any evidence. She was waiting for the moment when the truth was revealed. Seeing Long Chen's killing intent, she felt a lot better. In fact, in the past few years of her cultivation, Long Chen had never really paid attention to a peerless beauty like Biyao, which had already made his attitude clear. Now, he was a true enemy. Chen, I want to wait until the day I take revenge myself. There are some things that I have to return to her personally. Lingxi was as gentle as water, but her words hid killing intent. Okay. Hearing her voice, Long Chen suppressed his urge to kill Biyao immediately. If he wanted Lingxi to deal with her, it would take some time. Anyway, as long as she wasn't dead, there was still a long way to go. But today, he had just killed the godly king of hell. It was time to decide who was better with the other two godly kings. To the gods, this was the most unacceptable moment. The godly king of hell had fallen. The fall of a godly king was a major event for the entire world. Moreover, there weren't many godly kings among the gods. Originally, they thought that it would be easy to capture Long Chen and the other two. The gods were still joking around. Now that the godly king of hell had fallen before their eyes, everything seemed to have changed. The ruler of the dragon sacrificial continent had quietly changed. Long Chen, who had returned from the spirit essence star ocean without any power or influence, had now climbed above the gods. With the fall of the godly king of hell and the absence of the godly king of ink desolation, the gods of the dragon sacrificial continent had suddenly become the suppressed party. The two godly kings who were fighting with Mo Xiaolang and Soi Eon looked at each other in shock the moment the godly king of hell fell. The fall of the godly king of hell would definitely give Long Chen the time to deal with them or the other gods. Now, they could be considered the only gods left on the dragon sacrificial continent. Long Chen always remembered that what he had today was inseparable from the support of these trillions of living beings. When he returned to the dragon sacrificial continent, the first thing he did was to thank them. Very sincerely. Everyone, I'm actually very sorry. The battle with the god king of hell was more of a personal grudge. Now that the gods are gone, my revenge can be considered successful. Perhaps in an era without the gods, everyone will live a more relaxed life. As he spoke, cheers could be heard everywhere. Right now, he was the true ruler of the draconic sacrificial continent, the faith of countless living beings. Long Chen thought that if it wasn't for the primordial gods, he could almost be considered to have fulfilled all of his dreams. From now on, he could even live a carefree life. But he couldn't. He had to explain. Therefore, he continued, today, although I've caused the god kings of hell to fall and the ancient gods to flee, they will eventually return and fight me again. If I'm defeated, perhaps I'll leave this place temporarily. Hopefully, they have other motives and won't harm you. After all, you're all innocent. I can also promise everyone that when I have enough power, I'll definitely return and chase them away again, restoring true peace to our dragon sacrificial dragon continent. Regardless of which gods or demons in the myriad worlds, they won't have the qualifications to destroy us and forcefully occupy our homeland. This was his future plan. He couldn't defeat the God Emperor in a short time. Therefore, after he went to the Origin Dragon Palace, perhaps he could only escape. Looking at the boundless void in front of him, he had a feeling that everything was within his father's control. At this moment, he had finally returned to look for him. However, he didn't know how dangerous the journey to Origin Dragon Palace would be. He had a feeling that it wouldn't be easy. Furthermore, there were still 3 god kings who were eyeing them covetously from the side. Who knew when they would return? How should I get in? Long Chen wandered around in front of the ancestral dragon cave for a long time. In truth, it was his first time entering and seeing the Origin Dragon Palace, and there was a lot of luck involved. Maybe this small place was the only gap in the Origin Dragon Palace, but with how big the starry sky was, it wasn't easy to find the gap. This was also the reason why the gods had searched for so many years but still hadn't found the Origin Dragon Palace. Instead, they had found the Cursed Realm not far away. There's no other way. I can only try it bit by bit. Long Chen searched through his memories for the location of the gap. He held on to the peerless dragon salure that Biyao had given him and tried. Regarding this blade, he had originally wanted to return it to Biyao, but the three-legged black crow had cried bitterly and wanted to follow him. It seemed that on account of his loyalty, Long Chen had to satisfy him. Even though he had some memories, it wasn't easy to find the gap. Although he was anxious, there was nothing he could do. Thus, it could be seen that he was waving his blade everywhere in front of the ancestral dragon cave, not letting go of a single place. 1 day, 2 days, until 8 days had passed. At this time, Long Chen was already a little anxious. Any day after this, the 3 divine kings would have the possibility of returning. Before knowing the secret of the Origin Dragon Palace, he definitely could not let them know that the Origin Dragon Palace was in this location. As expected, the place they were looking for might be the Origin Dragon Palace. Furthermore, the Ink Desolate Divine King was not easy to deal with. Finally, with every slash, he cut open a crack in a spherical space that was only about a meter in diameter. He was sure that he had entered the Origin Dragon Palace from here. He could only say that his luck was really good at that time. Long Chen was extremely excited. He memorized the location in front of him, and then kept the peerless dragon salure. Without saying a word, he rushed into the ancient and vast starry sky. The crack closed. Raising his head to look, he was once again deeply shocked. That's right, that vast, grand, resplendent palace with countless divine dragons soaring above it was the Origin Dragon Palace. We're finally here. All the secrets were here. Long Chen could not help but approach the Origin Dragon Palace. In the endless starry sky, a huge ship that was like a galaxy was rapidly advancing in the starry sky. In front of it, a dark green divine warship appeared. It was even more ancient and domineering. The huge galactic warship increased its speed and converged with the dark green divine warship. The dark green divine warship opened and all the gods entered. Among them, the light divine king, starry sky divine king Biyao led the way. In this dark green divine warship, everyone's expression was rather ugly. Divine King Ink Desolate stood in the darkness, waiting for them. The gods met. In that case, the Hell Divine King is really trash. Divine King Ink Desolate knew what had happened long ago, which was why he sped up and rushed back. Now, this dark green divine warship was heading towards the dragon sacrificial continent at a terrifying speed. Starry Sky Divine King said, "Don't spout nonsense, it's that Long Chen who is too terrifying. His growth is too fast. I'm afraid this is our last chance to kill him." Divine King Ink Desolate did not want to be entangled in this matter. He said, "All right, after we return, you guys continue to deal with that Imo Xiaolang and Demon Hua. Leave this Long Chen to me." Light Divine King said, "Ink Desolate naturally has no problem with you, but we've seen his power with our own eyes. I suggest you take him seriously and treat him as a mortal enemy." The Hell Divine King was too arrogant and underestimated his opponent. That's why he ended up like this. Divine King Ink Desolate was not an idiot when even the cautious Light Divine King said this. He nodded and said, "Don't worry. It's been many years since I've fought so straightforwardly. I'm looking forward to this battle more than you guys. Since this is our only chance, let's completely end his life. Now that even the Hell Divine King has lost his life, we've lost all our face. If we don't take care of him now, we won't be able to face the God Emperor and the 2 Demon God Emperors." They continued to plan and were more or less confident. In front of the dark green divine warship, they could see the huge dragon-shaped continent. This world that is about to be destroyed actually produced such a character. It's really an eye-opener. The God Emperor is really interested in him. It's just that the difficulty of capturing him alive is getting higher and higher. Until now, we still haven't completed the mission. Maybe it's because of this Long Chen's existence from the beginning to the end. It's the 28th. I'll ask for the next monthly vote at the end of the month. I'll rush forward a little more. The monthly vote ranking is a game for the rich. Our dragons are all young, and most of them are students. They can only give 1 vote at most, unlike others who can give 5 votes. But as long as we have more people, we don't have to worry about the rest. Chapter 27:33. The huge origin dragon palace gradually expanded in front of his eyes. The closer he got to the huge golden palace, the more excited Long Chen felt. It was finally here. The origin dragon palace was in a completely sealed state. The only way to enter was through the 2 10,000-meter-tall golden gates. Long Chen was already standing in front of the gates, his entire body bathed in golden light. Looking up, he could see that the origin dragon palace was boundless. It was shrouded in a huge golden light shield. The light shield shone with the sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, trees, and all sorts of flying mystical dragons. It was an ancient land. Perhaps this was the #1 dragon sacrifice continent from an epoch ago. Long Chen did not quite understand what level it was to be the #1 in the myriad realms. However, he could imagine that the God Emperor, who stood at the peak of all living beings and could shake the myriad realms, was only at the level of an ultimate divine dragon, or perhaps even slightly inferior. Some ultimate mystical dragons could even compare to God Tai realm gods and demons, not to mention supreme mystical dragons and ancestral dragons. Ancestral dragons were definitely above God Tai realm. Tai Chi, Tai Su, Tai Shi, Tai Chu, Tai. God Tai realm was the pinnacle of gods, the supreme ruler of all worlds. Even God emperors had to bow before God Tai realm experts. In all worlds, ultimate mystical spirits of God Tai realm were called supreme gods. There were more than 80 supreme divine dragons that were equivalent to or even beyond the supreme divine realm. One could only imagine how terrifying it was. Even if there were supreme divinities in the myriad worlds, they were all existences from before the epoch. Before him, the golden gates blocked the secret that Long Chen wanted to see. Eternal Dragon Emperor, Long Qinglan, was in this origin dragon palace. Looks like I need to open this gate. He had no choice but to be cautious. He walked forward step by step until he stood before the golden door that was tens of thousands of meters tall. In front of the door, he seemed incomparably small, like an ant in front of the door, or perhaps even smaller. And now, he gently placed his palm on the golden door. There was no rejection. However, when Long Chen exerted a bit of force, he felt a frighteningly heavy feeling. Looks like I need a lot of power to open these gates. God King level power. Long Chen finally understood. It seemed that this was also a challenge. He placed both his hands on the door and mobilized all the strength in his body. Like an ancient giant beast, he roared and slammed all his strength into the door, launching a fierce attack. A black dot suddenly appeared beside the eternal opal. Among the trillions of living beings, there were bound to be some attentive people who discovered it. After the battle between Long Chen and the Celestial King, the gods fled, and Long Chen disappeared. The days became peaceful. With the eternal opal, the entire world had become a lot more beautiful. As they absorbed the world creation spirit chi, more and more people's cultivation base soared. What is that? I think so. This black dot grew larger and larger, finally turning into a huge divine warship that floated in the sky above the dragon sacrificial continent. Finally, the divine warship disappeared and 4 gods appeared. They were Biyao, Ink Desolation Godly King, Radiance Godly King, and Starry Sky Godly King. They're back. The primeval gods. Naturally, the 4 of them would not hide their tracks at all. Therefore, the living beings could easily see them. For a moment, the dragon sacrificial continent was in a panic again. People were scared witless, knowing that another big battle was about to begin. As for the hatred between the deity king of hell and the 7 divine monarchs, I believe the God King will definitely make Long Chen pay the price. No. Suddenly, Biyao shook her head. She said, I understand Long Chen. When he was weak, he did not escape. Now that he has defeated the deity king, and it will indeed be a while before my father returns. I have a feeling that it will only be a few days. He won't be in such a hurry to escape. He must still be nearby. I want to give it a try." The three deity kings looked at her and roughly knew what she was going to try. "Princess, you have sworn an oath," Light Desolation reminded. Biyao sneered and said, "Indeed, but things like oaths are nothing more than child's play. Moreover, I don't even need to kill people. As long as he is nearby, he will definitely appear. Long Chen will not just watch as I kill them." Although this method was a little despicable, it was indeed a good method. The three deity kings also had a little intuition that Long Chen was still nearby. Biyao could do whatever she wanted. After knowing that they had returned, everyone on the Draconic Ritual continent became nervous. Suddenly, on the side of the three great arch domains, inside the Sword Spirit Emperor Palace, everyone in the Sword Spirit Emperor Palace flew up into the sky under the control of a supreme god. In the blink of an eye, tens of millions of people appeared in front of the four deities. The entire Heavenly Sword Soul Mountain was already empty. Biyao remembered this place. This was the place where Lingxi grew up. She hated this place to death. If it wasn't for Lingxi, Long Chen would have long been in her pocket. She knew how heaven-defying Long Chen was. Therefore, even now, she still refused to give up. Once she obtained his affection, her future would definitely be limitless. "Tell Long Chen to come out." Biyao's divine might was boundless, suppressing every disciple of the Sword Spirit Emperor Palace to the point of suffocation. Among the disciples, there were young people and old people. Long Chen and Lingxi were the legends of the Sword Spirit Emperor Palace. That day, Long Chen transformed into a dragon. It was still passed down as a legend to this day. Even though they were currently being controlled by the four deities, the disciples of the Sword Spirit Emperor Palace weren't too worried. They had blind faith in Long Chen. "Tell Long Chen to come out." Seeing that they weren't afraid of death, Dia repeated. At this moment, among the four sword sovereigns, the Imperial Heaven Sword Master sneered, "I remember that someone swore an oath in front of Long Chen a few days ago. I didn't expect him to forget it so quickly. Let me tell you, he has already left this place. You can kill us all you want. One day, he will come back to take revenge for us. I'll let you, the daughter of a deity emperor, die without a burial place." Even though the other disciples of the Sword Spirit Emperor Palace didn't say anything, they all had the same thought. They weren't afraid of death. That's what you said yourself. A mere life form dared to humiliate them in front of them? This was simply the biggest joke in the world. Biyao was like gunpowder. She couldn't help but make a move first. With just a clench of her hand, the Imperial Heaven Sword Master turned into ashes in front of her eyes. The Imperial Heaven Sword Master was dead. The tens of millions of disciples of the Sword Spirit Emperor Palace witnessed this scene. They understood even more clearly that these were the so-called ancestors of the gods. Disregarding human life. Compared to Long Chen, they could only be considered as invaders. "Where's your guardian deity? Ask him to come out and save you." Biyao couldn't help but laugh when she saw their pale faces. They were incomparably angry, but they couldn't do anything about it. "Every second, I'll cripple 10,000 of your people. Let's see when he'll come out." Biyao's cold voice rang out. She had actually done it rather discreetly. Only the people of the Sword Spirit Emperor Palace had disappeared. The others still didn't know what was happening. In the Eastern Star Domain, Long Chen was using all his strength to push that huge door open. At the same time, Sui Yan and Mo Xiaolang were also helping. The three of them all had the power of a god king. With their combined strength, they finally managed to move the huge golden door. They gathered all their strength and tried to push the door open. "Let go." Just before they succeeded, Long Chen suddenly roared. He pulled Mo Xiaolang and Sui Yan and retreated. The huge door lost its support and fell back. The impact sent them flying back tens of thousands of meters, causing their blood to boil. "Big brother, what's wrong?" Seeing Long Chen's expression suddenly turn ugly, Mo Xiaolang asked curiously. God King Ink Desolation returned early. Biyao captured the people of the Sword Spirit Emperor Palace. Long Chen's eyes were filled with killing intent. Biyao again. Every time he let her go, she would always challenge his bottom line. He let her go because she was the daughter of a god emperor. Long Chen was somewhat apprehensive. But she seemed to be taking a yard after taking an inch. Last time, it was all the people he cared about. This time, it was the entire Sword Spirit Emperor Palace. Who knew what would happen next? Go back. Even if the Origin Dragon Palace was right in front of him, Long Chen could only go back and fight again. Today was the 800th day of the Dragon Blood's continuous update. A total of 5 million words. Since September 15, 2012, rain or shine, sickness, classes, and many other things in life that cannot be described in detail, we still maintained an average daily update rate of more than 10,000 words. I have worked hard for a promise. I am also grateful to so many readers for giving me the wishes of all living beings, allowing me to roam the online literature world. Every day, I can see everyone's followers and blessings on WeChat and QQ. We have expanded from a team of a few hundred to a few million. We are spread across the entire internet. Madman can now meet a few hairdressers who look at the dragon blood when he goes out for a haircut. Let's not talk about anything else. I am grateful to everyone. Long live the dragons. Madman will persevere until the dragon blood reaches 1,000 days. He will fight for 1,000 days without rest. On the day of the 1,000 days, I will break 10 chapters. Everyone, help me calculate. I am afraid I will forget. P.S. The WeChat public account already has over 70,000 people. With another 25,000 people, there will be 100,000 people. Even if it breaks 100,000, it will still break 10 chapters. Everyone, work harder. Their reputation had become unprecedentedly bad. But no matter what, the next battle was bound to decide the fate of the dragon sacrificial continent. All living beings silently prayed for Long Chen in their hearts. This was their wish. Wishes were a kind of power for Long Chen. This time, Long Chen was also furious. Although it was not as intense as when he fought against the God King of Hell, this battle was even more important. As long as he killed another God King, his strength might reach a new level. The remaining 2 God Kings were nothing to worry about. That way, he could explore the Origin Dragon Palace with peace of mind and chase away the primordial deities until godly Emperor Jun returned with the other powerful God Kings. By then, perhaps Long Chen would have found a solution. He rushed into the starry sky and waited for their arrival on the previous battlefield. Above his head was the eternal opal that was emitting endless light. This eternal treasure was indeed terrifying as it could change the entire world. This was something that belonged to godly emperor, and no one could snatch it away from him. The 3 god kings and Biyao streaked across a bright trajectory and instantly appeared 10,000 meters away from Long Chen, confronting Long Chen. After a period of recuperation, Mo Xiaolang and Soi Yan had more or less recovered. At this moment, the 3 of them stood together and faced the 3 stronger God Kings. God King Ink Desolation wore a dark green battle armor and stood in the center. An emperor's will suppress the heaven and earth, causing all living things to submit. This was a natural disposition of a king. His eyes were cold as he looked Long Chen up and down. If it wasn't for the 2 God Kings beside him describing it clearly, he wouldn't have believed that Long Chen could do this. After all, 2 years ago, he could only rely on holding Biyao hostage to escape into the Palace of Destiny. But Long Chen was looking at Biyao. This enchanting white-haired woman was looking at Long Chen passionately. She giggled and said, "I left too suddenly last time, so I didn't have time to tell you." That's right, I was the one who sent the God King of Hell to kill Lingxi. If I hadn't killed her, how would I have gotten you? As for why things have developed to such an extent, you can only blame yourself for not being sensible. Long Chen, the fates of you and everyone around you will definitely be extremely miserable. At that time, you can only blame yourself. Long Chen was actually very calm when he saw how proud she was. He said indifferently, "It's a pity that you didn't succeed. Besides, you're the daughter of a god king and a princess. In my heart, you can't even compare to a hair on Lingxi's head. You're an honorable person, but you can't hide your filthy heart. If I had chosen you, I would have regretted it for the rest of my life. Get out of here. There are no eyes in a fight. If I accidentally kill you, the god King Jun will hunt me down himself." Every word he said was heart-wrenching. Biyao had been very pleased with herself at first, but after hearing all of this, her eyes turned red. She clenched her fists and glared at Long Chen, her eyes filled with killing intent. From love to hate, the deeper the love, the deeper the hate. "Princess, don't waste time." God King Ink Desolation couldn't wait to start a fight. He gave the radiant God King a look. He couldn't let Long Chen kidnap Biyao anymore, so he had to protect her first. That was why he had the radiant God King bring her into the theocracy. "Long Chen, we broke off all ties a long time ago. I'm telling you, one day, you'll kneel before me and beg me to forgive you." Biyao cursed unwillingly. "One day, there will be someone who deserves to kill you, and that person will kill you." Long Chen replied. This was Lingxi's wish. He didn't do anything because he was giving Lingxi a chance to take revenge. A vendetta between women might be even more terrifying. After hearing this, Biyao was taken away by the radiant God King. Only 3 God Kings were left. "Your old rival, leave Long Chen to me." God King Ink Desolation had the demeanor of a leader. He said coldly and took the first step towards Long Chen. He was decisive and direct. His burly body had the pressure of a mountain. Although his body didn't change, in Long Chen's eyes, this Ink Qilin had already become tens of thousands of meters tall. As expected, just his strength alone is a level higher than the godly kings of hell. He's clearly nearing perfection. Although Long Chen didn't have much confidence, this didn't stop his fighting spirit from erupting. The final battle. How could he retreat? Trillions of lives were waiting for him. "Be careful. If anything happens, listen to my orders at any time," Long Chen said to Mo Xiaolang and Sui Yan. This battle was different from the previous one. If Long Chen had a 70% chance of winning the previous battle, then he only had a 40% chance of winning this battle. That was less than 50%. In the eyes of Mo Xiaolang and Sui Yan, there was only hatred and no fear. This divine battle was about to erupt. At this moment, a beam of light suddenly flashed beside the eternal opal. A powerful aura descended and interrupted the confrontation between Long Chen and God King Ink Desolation. The 6 experts looked up into the sky and realized that there was a small dot beside the eternal opal. Someone's coming. Long Chen was shocked. No one had discovered this corner of the draconic sacrificial continent for millions of years, and no god was willing to descend into this broken world. At this moment, the greatest possibility was God Emperor Di Jun and his subordinates. If that was the case, then Long Chen was doomed for life. Not only would he be doomed, but all the dragon martial artists in the God Nation would be doomed. Ever since God Emperor Di Jun went to the Eternal God Domain, the name of the Eternal God Emperor had been resounding. This ruler of all worlds had always been terrifying. Therefore, even Mo Xiaolang and Sui Yan were stunned. However, Long Chen quickly noticed a detail. After seeing this small dot, the 3 God Kings were also puzzled. They did not show the reverence that they should have shown when Di Jun descended. Moreover, if Di Jun was going to descend now, there was no need for them to descend earlier. It's not Di Jun. Long Chen immediately came to a conclusion and told the others. Then who could it be, to actually come here? Presumably, the 3 God Kings were also puzzled by this question. However, the answer to the mystery would be revealed very soon. Perhaps sensing the battle between Long Chen and Ink Desolation God King, that divine worship headed towards them. It was an extremely extravagant divine worship. Most of it was white, and it was like a palace walking in the starry sky. It was majestic and extravagant. It was a Genesis-level Destiny-type divine weapon. Basically, gods who could possess a creation-grade creation divine artifact were all God Kings and above. Clearly, a God King had descended. God King Ink Desolation said coldly, "Who are you? Why have you come to visit my draconic sacrificial continent? If you are not a friend, please leave immediately." As expected, it was not one of them. It was a God King from another world. Speaking of which, it was laughable. Who would have thought that a God King from another world would really appear, and at this time? This was a spoiler. Chapter 27:35. Just as God King Ink Desolation finished speaking, the divine worship was put away. What appeared in front of Long Chen and the rest was not one person, but two. Moreover, these two gods were probably God Kings. In the myriad worlds, encountering two godly monarchs by chance was truly not an easy task. These two foreign universe godly monarchs gave Long Chen a very strange feeling. That was, they had no gender, neither male nor female. The two God Kings before him had black hair and black eyes, not far from the humans of Draconic Continent. However, he could not tell whether they were male or female. It was truly a miracle to be able to see the fortitude of a man and the allure of a woman on a single person. After all, even ants had gender, let alone God Kings. But these two did not. Even their appearance was completely the same. There was no difference between the two. It was impossible to tell who was who. Long black hair, slender body, slender fingers, handsome and alluring. They even had a strange smile on their faces. Even the width of their lips was the same. But it was undeniable that they were very powerful. The laws they cultivated should be the same, but there was a slight difference between them. This was a law that could not be explored, making them even more strange. Before they displayed their strength, Long Chen could not find out what they were good at. But his intuition told him that these two were very difficult to deal with. At least, he could not provoke them easily, especially when he was facing off against three God Kings and was about to fight a life or death battle. At this time, the one on the left said with a magnetic voice that was not clear of its gender, "Are you guys fighting? Sorry to disturb you. We'll come back after you've decided a life or death battle." With that, they turned to leave. Based on the fact that they remained unfazed in the face of the six powerhouses, it was clear that they were not afraid of the six opponents. Clearly, this required a great deal of support. Based on Long Chen's judgment, they were definitely not simple. However, the God Kings definitely did not want them to leave. God King Starry Sky said solemnly, "Since you're here, tell us where you came from and what you want. It won't be that easy to leave." "Is that so?" Hearing this, the two divine kings turned around. They still maintained that strange smile on their faces, and their expressions did not change at all. Background and purpose? They smiled and looked at each other, then the one on the right said, "We come from the extreme north of the infinite worlds. You must have heard of us. There are many legends about us in the infinite worlds. We come from the sacrificial god world." When they said the last 5 words, they were indeed very proud and complacent. Of course, it was impossible for Long Chen to have heard of it, but this was the dragon sacrificial great world, and the other party was the god sacrificial great world, so it sounded like there was some connection. However, God King Ink Desolation and the other two exchanged glances. Among them, God King Ink Desolation said, "Never heard of it. Is it famous? Do the people on your side not differentiate between men and women?" Hearing this, the two divine kings from the other dimension were not angry at all. Their smiles never stopped. The one on the left said, "Gender is just a foolish desire. We true gods do not need gender. Although you've become gods, you're still mortal gods, no different from mortal spirits. Long Chen was stunned for a moment. If they didn't have a gender, then, well, he didn't dare to imagine how these guys lived. Now that they were interrupted, the battle that was supposed to happen would definitely go wrong. The Divine King on the right said, "It's normal that you haven't heard of it. We're too far from here. My name is Shenyang, and his is Shinxiong. We are the eternal god tribe of the god-sacrificial great world. You might not have heard of it before, but from now on, you'll remember it well." Eternal god tribe? The three divine kings exchanged glances. If not for the fact that the other party was strong enough to interrupt them, they would have been chased away long ago. Now, the three divine kings were probably having a headache. How exactly were they going to chase these two guys away? Shinxiong, Shenyang. Shinxiong said, "That's right, the eternal god tribe. We have a total of 8 god emperors. We're famous in the extreme north. It's not something that your small world can compare to. This time, the two of us were traveling through the infinite worlds, and we happened to pass by nearby and were attracted here." Shenyang smiled and said, "What's the name of your world? It's clearly a world that's about to collapse, but there's such a treasure suppressing it, stabilizing it. If not for that, a god king would probably be able to shatter this world. This should be the eternal grade eternal opal. I didn't expect that we would be so lucky to find it in a corner of the infinite worlds." They were actually attracted here by the eternal opal. But what shocked Long Chen the most was that the eternal god tribe of the god-sacrificial great world actually had 8 god emperors. That was even scarier than the dragon sacrificial gods. After all, the dragon sacrificial gods and 2 demon god emperors were only 3 god emperors. If 8 god emperors descended on the dragon sacrificial continent, it would be unimaginable. The infinite worlds were vast, and there were countless experts. It was truly terrifying. Clearly, the 3 divine kings' expressions changed. They realized that they had attracted a terrifying opponent. A world with 8 god emperors was considered pretty good in the infinite worlds. Their Taihao territory happened to be very far away from the god-sacrificial great world, so they had never heard of it. Divine King Ink Desolation was relatively calm. He asked, "What do you plan to do?" Shenyang looked around, then looked at the eternal opal. He said, "An eternal grade treasure like this needs to be controlled by at least a god emperor. Therefore, your world should have a god emperor. We want to negotiate with him. We are willing to pay a certain price for revenge in exchange for this eternal opal. Of course, when the time comes, the 8 god emperors of our eternal god tribe will show themselves and descend here. Since we've discovered the eternal opal, we'll come down and greet you first." From his tone, it seemed that the eternal opal was already in the bag. Perhaps this was the eternal god tribe's way of doing things in the infinite worlds. Everything they saw belonged to them. Even though there were only 2 of them, they spoke to Divine King Ink Desolation and the others with absolute contempt. This kind of superiority was not something an ordinary race could have. They had 8 god emperors, so they naturally had the right to do so. However, the dragon sacrificial living beings led by Di Jun were not ordinary either. The eternal opal was Di Jun's treasure. Naturally, no one could take it away. To Long Chen, it was the eternal opal that stabilized the dragon's sacrificial continent and prevented it from being destroyed. Therefore, he also stood on the opposite side of the eternal god tribe. Of course, he should just wait and see. Impossible. As expected, Divine King Ink Desolation rejected them decisively. He said, "The eternal opal is very important to us. We need it to maintain the stability of this world. Our god emperors will definitely not exchange the eternal opal with you. You can leave." Shinxiong and Shenyang seemed to have guessed that this would be the result. They chuckled and looked at each other. One of them said, "It's fine, it's just a small matter. I'm afraid we'll have to trouble the 8 god emperors to personally make a trip here. This place is really hard to find. We'll just wait here for them to come. You guys don't know what's good for you, but I believe that your god emperors will." The infinite worlds were vast and boundless. It was indeed not easy to find the dragon sacrificial continent unless someone led the way. Moreover, these two god kings were so far away from their sacrificial god's great world. It would be troublesome to send the message of the eternal opal back. Are the two of you forcing us to take action? Divine King Ink Desolation had already made his decision. These two must not be left alive. If they were left here, the eternal god race would be able to find this place quickly. If they killed them, the eternal god race would have to spend a few more years. By then, the God Emperor would have returned and completed the mission in the Dragon Sacrificial Continent. They could then leave and return to the Taihao region. It would be strange if the Eternal God race could still find them. Hearing Divine King Ink Desolation's decision, Xinyang and Xinqiang shook their heads and sighed. You guys really don't know what's good for you. Maybe it's because you're too far away from the sacrificial god's great world. There are hundreds of worlds near us. They never dare to go against our requests, even worlds with god emperors. Sigh, looks like we'll have to take action again. Long Chen's horizons were broadened. In his eyes, the dragon sacrificial gods were crazy and arrogant enough. He didn't expect that the eternal god race would be even crazier and more arrogant than they were. They were even more arrogant. Receiving such treatment was retribution. However, it also proved that there was always a higher mountain. At this moment, Divine King Ink Desolation stared at Long Chen and said, "What's your decision? The enmity between us is just a personal grudge. Just like you, we have to protect this broken world. Once the eternal incandescent stone is snatched away, the dragon sacrificial continent will definitely collapse, and billions of lives will be lost. If we kill these two, the god emperors will come in the future. At least there will be a lot of time to deal with them. It's just that there are 8 god emperors. They might not give me a headache." He wanted to join hands with Long Chen and get rid of them first before fighting them. Long Chen thought, when Di Jun comes and gets rid of the thing he's looking for, with the dragon sacrificial god's personality, they might not stay here. They might even leave with the eternal incandescent stone. When that happens, it will have nothing to do with me. The eternal god race will only be chasing them. There's no need for me to become enemies with the eternal god race. Thinking of this, he shook his head and said, "This has nothing to do with me. You guys can settle your own matters." With that, he retreated and let them fight. If they fought until both sides were injured, he could take advantage of the situation. A 3-way battle was troublesome to begin with. Clearly, with Long Chen retreating, they couldn't fight no matter what. Divine King Ink Desolation narrowed his eyes and looked at Long Chen. He suddenly said to Xinyang and Xinqiang, "Then let's make a deal. Let's join hands and get rid of these 3 first. We can discuss the rest slowly. First, we will tell your request to the God Emperor and wait for his decision. How about that?" Xinyang and Xinqiang looked at each other and burst into laughter. "You mortal gods are good at fighting among yourselves. We, the eternal god race, have never done that. Last 2 days, monthly votes." Long Chen thought for a moment, then said, "The eternal god race is arrogant and completely disregards us. Since we cannot ally with them, we can only ally with the god kings to kill them first. It's just right for each side to deal with one. But they have already informed the 8 godly emperors of the sacrificial god world about the eternal opal. If they die here, and godly Emperor Di Jun retreats, their main goal is still the eternal opal, but they might also vent their anger and destroy the dragon sacrificial continent. But if we don't kill them and continue like this, I won't be able to figure out the origin dragon palace before godly Emperor Di Jun arrives. Of course, I can choose to escape now, but exposing the dragon sacrificial continent to the 2 pantheons and possibly becoming their battlefield is even more unacceptable." After careful analysis, Long Chen realized that both sides were in a very difficult situation. The descent of the eternal god race brought him a huge predicament. In the end, it's because we are too weak. That's why we can be crushed and destroyed at any time under the attack of the two pantheons. This is our home. No matter who it was, they couldn't bear to see their home destroyed just like that. Even if Long Chen could escape now and abandon his home like the ancient gods, he couldn't do it. This place carried all of his dreams and long-cherished wishes. Protecting this place and continuing the legacy of the divine dragon was also his father's dream. Yes, they are still silently protecting us. Black Dragon, White Dragon, Curse Realm Protector. At worst, he could even transfer the people of the dragon sacrificial continent to the divine planet of destiny. At the very least, the divine planet of destiny was incomparably sturdy. As long as he became stronger, there would be a way out. Last time, Long Chen's chance to become stronger was on the divine planet of destiny. He fought with his back against the wall and succeeded. He killed the godly king of hell and took his revenge. This time, our chance to become stronger should be in the Origin Dragon Palace. I should go in no matter what price I have to pay, even if I have to kill the eternal god race and bear the risk of being annihilated by them. I shouldn't wait for godly Emperor Jun to arrive and be imprisoned by him. If that happens, I will never be able to rise again and will forever be suppressed by them. When the godly Emperor completes his mission and finds what he wants, he will still leave this place. At that time, the dragon sacrificial continent may still become a place for the eternal god race to vent their anger. Therefore, my only hope is the Origin Dragon Palace. After the analysis of the dragon emperors, Long Chen finally had a definite goal. That's right, kill the eternal god race and fight the three godly kings. The dragon emperors supported him to do this. Yang Yu said, without a doubt, it is too difficult for us to survive in the cracks. Right now, there seems to be no path ahead of us, but I believe that we will cross the bridge when we get to it. Moreover, there must be some existences secretly protecting us. Chen, if someone wants you to go to the Origin Dragon Palace to see your father, then you must go. As long as you see him, I believe that he will definitely point out a path for you. Yes, father, Long Chen's heart was deeply shaken. Yang Yu was right. He couldn't fear too much. He had to bravely protect the dragon sacrificial continent. The dragon sacrificial continent was too weak. The living beings were too weak. If it wasn't for the return of the gods, this world might not have been involved in the War of the Infinite Worlds, and it might not have been discovered by the eternal god race. Those two eternal god races would have even less interest in this world. This world might have gradually walked towards destruction, and its inheritance would be severed. But now, it was different. It was undeniable that Long Chen was now the protector of this world. He shouldered the responsibility of the dragon sacrificial continent's protector. He had to protect his homeland and his inheritance. Every decision he made would affect the lives of trillions of people. Now, millions of dragon warriors were looking at him. The dragon sacrificial continent was facing the most terrifying crisis in millions of years. Its destruction was imminent. He was chosen by fate and rose rapidly. Now, he had become the pillar. Everyone was waiting for him and had high hopes for him. In the midst of danger, their eyes were brimming with tears, but they didn't surrender. Long Chen raised his hand and said one word, fight. This was his decision. The dragon warriors cheered. They were the last inheritors of the dragon god. The last inheritors of the dragon god. Inheritors, protectors. There were so many living beings here. Long Chen had seen their fires of fate. He deeply loved each and every one of them. At this moment, be it evil or good, strong or weak, all living beings only had one identity. They were the last batch of survivors before the apocalypse. Their ancestors had all been born in this world. Their bloodlines were here, their roots were here. This was a place stained with their blood. How could they allow others to wantonly destroy it, destroy this land, sever the inheritance here, cut off the dragon sacrificial great world's lineage, and let all the people they cared about die unwillingly? Everyone, walk through this darkness before us. No matter what price I have to pay, I will definitely lead everyone to find a dawn that belongs to us. I hope that one day, we can recreate the glory from before the epoch. At the very least, we can't let anyone humiliate us or look down on us. This is the dream in my heart. I will definitely accomplish it. His blood was boiling. At this moment, the 5 ancestral dragon inheritances were boiling. They could feel Long Chen's lofty sentiments at this moment. That's right, slaughter. Since the discussion was done, Long Chen set off. He brought Imo Shaolang and Soi Yan with him to search for the Eternal God Tribe and God King Ink Desolation in the Eternal Sacred Realm. God King Ink Desolation and the others were still monitoring the Eternal God Tribe. They were roughly in the eastern part of the Dragon Sacrificial Continent, near the Black Jade Dragon Head. What's this weird thing? Now, the 2 Eternal God Tribe members were on the Black Jade Dragon Head. They tried attacking it a few times but failed. This intrigued them, and they tried again. There's nothing we can do about it. It's really amazing. It must be a great treasure. When the God Emperors come, we must tell them about this. Shenyang and Shenxiong continued east. At this rate, they would probably reach the origin of the dragon god. Monster, let's inform your God Emperor. What's his decision? Shenxiong looked at the clouds in the west and smiled. The monster he was referring to was God King Ink Desolation. God King Ink Desolation and the other 2 emerged from the clouds, their faces livid. God King Ink Desolation said, "The Eternal Opal is not simple. Our God Emperor knows about your sacrificial God world." Do you know what he said? Shenyang smiled. I'm very curious. God King Ink Desolation said, he said, even if you 8 God Emperors work together, you can only die before him. This was the first time Shenyang and Shenxiong were stunned. After a long while, they roared with laughter, rocking back and forth. Finally, they said, "So you're saying that you're prepared to fight us?" At this moment, they were above a god city in the east. When Shenyang said this, he pressed down. The god city below collapsed, and hundreds of thousands of people died instantly. Chapter 2737. The Eternal God race came from the sacrificial gods' great world in the extreme north and had never had any interaction with the dragon sacrificial gods. In Long Chen's opinion, the most obvious difference between the Eternal God race and the dragon sacrificial gods was that the dragon sacrificial gods might not attack the common people openly. Even if they wanted to kill, they would do it in secret. For example, Biyao used the lives of Sword Spirit Emperor Palace and his friends to threaten Long Chen. However, the Eternal God race was different. In their eyes, the people of the dragon sacrificial continent were merely ants from another world. They could kill as many as they wanted without the slightest bit of protection or fear. Therefore, they could destroy an ancient city of divine descendants when they were enraged. Even if it was just an ordinary ancient city of God's descendants, hundreds of thousands of lives were lost. Even more people were injured by the Eternal God race's wrath. For a moment, the entire eastern part of the Dragon God domain was in an uproar. Such a big event couldn't be hidden from the common people. Many people knew that before Long Chen and God King Ink Desolation fought, a foreign race god had arrived and interrupted their battle. Moreover, it was a very strong foreign race god king who was not easy to negotiate with. It was the era of gods now, an eventful period. People were no longer surprised by the arrival of foreign race god kings. Even the God Emperor of the absolute beginning God realm would come in the future. This made people reminisce about the peaceful days of the past. At least back then, they didn't know how insignificant they were and didn't have to worry about the end of the world. The Eternal God race's actions caused the dragon sacrificial continent to become lively again. First of all, the 3 god kings knew that this was a provocation. God Emperor Jun naturally wouldn't give the Eternal Opal to them so easily. They destroyed an ancient city of God's descendants that was the most loyal to the gods. They were the only group of people in the entire dragon sacrificial continent who didn't believe in Long Chen. This was a ruthless slap to the faces of the 3 god kings. As for Long Chen, he was in the vicinity as well. He even personally witnessed the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. Because the other party's actions were too sudden, he wasn't able to protect these people in a short period of time. However, when he saw this scene, he, who had just made up his mind, felt his eyes turning bloodshot. The Eternal God race had destroyed the balance between the three factions, angering him and God King Ink Desolation. Of course, it was possible that he didn't care at all. Long Chen's fire of life landed on the divine city. He could not bring the dead back to life, but he could heal all the injured people. Then, he appeared behind the two eternal divine races and surrounded them with the Ink Desolation Divine King and the others. They had started the fight. Io, are they going to join forces? Looks like we've done a great deed to make you forget our past enmity and join hands to deal with us. Shen Seng was not worried at all. She was still smiling. He looked exactly the same as Shen Xiong. If one did not look closely, it would be difficult to tell who they were. Long Chen, along with Mo Xiaolang and Sui Yan, exchanged glances with the three celestial kings. These three celestial kings had almost no personal enmity with Long Chen. Their conflict mainly stemmed from the conflict between the dragon sacrifice pantheon and this world. Of course, if a more brutal force descended, Long Chen could definitely ally with them for a short period of time. Divine King Ink Desolation was incomparably cold as he said, one opponent per side, choose one. The agreement was reached without words. Their movements were almost synchronized. Nomological power. Long Chen had never understood what nomological power the two of them cultivated, but now the answer to the mystery was about to be revealed. God Sacrifice Art. Just from the name alone, one could not discover anything. But judging from the nomological power, this should be an ability that both Shen Qiong and Shen Qiong could use. In fact, there should be many people in the Eternal God clan who could use it. According to Long Chen's estimation, since there were 8 God Emperors, the Eternal God clan should have about 100 God Kings. This was far more than the 20 or so God Kings in the Dragon Sacrifice Art. The God Sacrifice Art was activated. Shen Qiong's body suddenly shone brightly, forming a torrent that swept across his body. A low Sanskrit chant spread across the sky. It was the mystical voice of the alien race, and it made people feel like they were in a dream. There were all sorts of illusions, but that was not the main point. Long Chen's eyes flashed. When he saw the nomological power drown Shen Qiong, and then a huge divine shadow appeared behind him, exuding the majesty of a peerless venerable, he seemed to feel the nomological power. What exactly was he? This is faith. His heart was shaken. Because he had never thought that faith was also a kind of nomological power. Chapter 2738. The God Sacrifice Art couldn't stop it. This should be the racial talent of the Eternal God race. As long as one became a god and reached a certain realm, they would probably be able to cultivate this kind of nomological power. What the God Sacrifice Art displayed was the power of faith. From the perspective of the dragon sacrificial continent, one could see 2 huge full moons in the sky. The light of the full moons poured down on the earth, attracting countless people to watch. The full moons were even expanding. The speed of the God Sacrifice Art was very fast. This was what God and the others relied on. In a short moment, the size of the full moons covered the sky. Then, at a certain moment, the 2 full moons collided and exploded. This explosion didn't produce any impact, nor was there a loud sound. But one could see that the 2 full moons turned into countless light spots that flickered toward the entire dragon sacrificial continent. The number of light spots was really too many. It was impossible to count. At the very least, it was more than 1 trillion. Some of the light spots landed on the Eternal God domain first, while the majority landed on the dragon sacrificial continent. From the perspective of the dragon sacrificial continent, the entire sky was incomparably gorgeous, just like a dream. If it wasn't for the fact that Long Chen and the others were fighting against the godly kings of the other world, they might even be enjoying this beautiful moment. But soon, for Long Chen, this was simply a nightmare. The specks of light would not kill anyone, but when the specks of light fused into the bodies of the mortals instantly changed. They were controlled by the power of the laws of faith, and they prostrated themselves on the ground with incomparable reverence. They knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the sky. Their eyes were filled with sincerity and even madness. They muttered, "Eternal God Race. Supreme of all worlds. Eternal God Race, Supreme of all worlds." In the blink of an eye, the billions of mortals in the eternal God domain, whether they were demons or spirits, all knelt on the ground. Their bodies shone with light, and they were extremely devout as they chanted the same sentence. Then, the entire dragon sacrificial continent. Trillions of mortals were directly controlled by the light spots. They prostrated themselves on the ground and chanted, "Eternal God Race, Supreme of all worlds." They began to chant, and their combined voices were unimaginably loud, even deafening Long Chen and the others. From this, it could be seen that although mortals were weak, their combined strength was quite terrifying. Faith, God's sacrifice art. Long Chen understood. In the beginning, he was still very puzzled. What was the use of faith as a rule? But now, the trillions of celestial palaces on his body were extinguished, and the faith energy of the gods was directly cut off, causing him to instantly lose the support of the faith energy of the living beings. This way, the endurance and explosive power of his battles would definitely be greatly affected, and it would be impossible for him to rely on the faith energy of the living beings to increase his realm in the future. He was deprived of his faith. But now, the god's body gradually revealed itself in the light. He did not become a god because of faith. In the past, he did not have a shred of the power of faith in his body. But now, things were different. He was like the Long Chen from before. His body was filled with an endless and majestic power, ensuring that he would never be defeated. This was the God sacrifice art. The so-called God sacrificial art allows them, who have no faith, to instantly receive the power of faith from so many living beings to support them in battle. Perhaps they can't use this God sacrificial art in the endless starry sky, but this is the dragon sacrificial continent with trillions of living beings.